fantasy. Are you coming with me? Feed my fantasy.
What's going on, everybody? Let me know if there's any audio issues. Chat when y'all are coming in. What's going on? We got a really dope show today. I got somebody who she just started doing a podcast. She just started even face doxing herself. So she's a really big Twitter personality. I really like a lot of her takes. So I'm really excited to be like one of the first people that's going to be talking to her. So this is probably going to be one of the dopest shows I'm going to have, I think. But yeah, everybody, like the video on your way in. Please subscribe if you haven't, and go follow her on her new Twitter account, Useless Eaters. And yeah, let me bring her up really quick, and we'll get this shit started. What's going on, right side of history?
Not much. Just busy with school and stuff, and memeing the left.
The memeing the left, yeah. See, that's why I like your takes are like so high IQ. Also, sometimes I'm just like, wow, this is like going over my head. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm just an 80 IQ retard when I read some of your posts.
I get told that I get too verbose, and because I'm taking a lot of this stuff where I'm reading the books they write. I read the books the leftists write. I'm reading the Frankfurt School, like Herbert Marcuse, Hegel, all that stuff. And so some things get lost when I'm trying to translate what they're saying to a general audience, because they're using like hyper specific, like self-referential terms where like in order to explain a single word, for example, like the words Hegel uses, it can take like multiple sentences to like. So it can be hard.
Yeah, no, like that's crazy. So whenever it comes to all this like Twitter stuff, so I'm like new to Twitter, kind of like I got into this shit like probably like 6 months ago, hardcore, where I started like posting every day and taking it serious. I did like the whole YouTube journey and stuff, and I got a lot of subs and Facebook followers and TikTok, but I wanted to like do more of the X stuff, and it's just a whole different game. Like, what's some tips that you can give me, because you've done pretty good on X, and like what's your content that's done the best on there? Like, what do you feel like your niche is, or like you really stick to when it comes to using X?
So honestly, there's not really a strategy I apply. I think I started being active on there right at the right time. Because I got banned from, I liked Reddit a lot.
Oh, I love Reddit also. I feel you. And I got banned from there also.
Yeah. And so I got banned from Reddit around the time like Elon bought Twitter. And so I just like migrated, and I just started like shit posting. And like last February, I was like following like 2,000 people, and I had like 2,000 followers. And like overnight, like my stuff started blowing up. And I think it was related specifically to that period when they completely like turned off the controls or something. And there was I was getting a ton of engagement. It was way easier to get engagement back then than it is now. So I'm not like, and it seems like they've turned those controls back on, specifically around the time the advertising like started picking up with respect to like paying creators on a per view basis or per interaction basis.
Yeah,
and that's when I really noticed it tanked.
Dang, that's crazy. So yeah, and I've seen that a lot because I jump in a lot of like spaces and stuff where they talk about the algorithm and how it changed a lot. Whenever it comes to like what you kind of stick to on X, what would you say is like your genre or your niche?
So I started out in the gender, like doing the queer theory stuff, the gender debate. But I was I was interested in that from like a more, I guess, macro perspective. So not necessarily like the nitty gritty of the like, I guess, like mudslinging with getting into like Twitter slap fights. I was like more interested in like what is this and why do these like different types of like um academic theories like critical theory, queer theory, post-colonial theory, all the like why do they all have the same structure? And so I had been listening to James Lindsay since like 2020. And so I had like some familiarity, quite a bit of familiarity um, with respect to that regard, but it felt like a lot of the conversation was like pigeonholing people into like, oh, these are the people who discuss like the critical theory stuff, the race stuff. These are people who discuss like queer theory. And so eventually my account kind of began to blend all of those and like make connections between like, oh, like here's like the mechanism behind like these specific grievance studies, and here's how they are identical and predictable. And you can even like go so far as to like go through the literature on Google Scholar and kind of gauge where they're heading based on the frequency of certain publications. And that has basically like led up to where I am now, and just like creating informational content based on like what's the next move, like where are the medical organizations at, like does the governmental like regulatory apparatus encourage this, et cetera, et cetera.
Whenever it came to being on Reddit, like was there certain subreddits that you were a part of that already discussed this stuff before, so you were kind of seasoned in it?
Well, so I've been using Reddit since like 2013, since I was like what 13, 14 years old.
Oh, geez,
And
how old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay.
And so it has around like honestly 2016, 2017, all of the good subreddits started being banned left and right. And so they're like by I want to say like 2019 or 2020, there were no like gender critical subreddits left, or like overtly right-wing subreddits where like there were right-wing subreddits, but it was obviously there's like censorship going on because the Reddit admins would contact the mods and basically be like shape up or you're booted off the platform. And so it was dying. The right-wing conversation was dying anyways because
Yep.
you weren't allowed to talk about anything
Yes.
controversial.
So whenever it comes to like the whole debate, what would you say is like the biggest thing that you're constantly talking about the most? Like, is there like one subject that is like the most important subject you would say of it all?
I would say out of like all of the like critical theories specifically,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah, and what is
queer theory.
critical? And explain all that to me too.
Yeah, so it probably queer theory specifically related to like it, because it's so integral to our understanding of reality. I figured, and I kind of stuck with that topic because it's one of the things that everybody deals with. Like for example, like you're not necessarily dealing with conversations of race every day, but you're dealing with gender dynamics every day by virtue of being either a man or a woman, and by virtue of like constantly being around both men and women. And so when that kind of like that observation you're making as you go through life, like there is clear sex differences, and someone comes in and calls that paradigm into question, then you're basically going to be like thrown into like total disorientation. And I guess that makes you vulnerable to, I guess, more like suggestibility.
Yep.
And
psychological attacks.
But with respect to the critical theories, those I'll kind of go into a little of the background history. But the Frankfurt School in Germany kind of really created what we know as like cultural Marxism. And what that school was, it was combining Marx, Freud, and Hegel. into a more, I guess, a more social dialectic, as opposed to like dialectical materialism, which is directly dealing with like surplus capital and the means of production, etc. This was dealing with social capitals, like that's where we hear of things like whiteness as a currency, whiteness as a means of oppression, or like patriarchy as like a currency, as a means of oppressing individuals. And they basically like were analyzing the culture from this basically oppressor oppression framework. And it's dialectical in that it's intending to accelerate the contradictions. And so what that means is accelerate and point out and make like the subservient party constantly and viscerally aware of their positionality in comparison to the oppressor. And so what that does is it accelerates that contradiction, that dichotomy with respect to who holds the power and who doesn't. And that's called, Paulo Freire later on called that the conscientization in his book Pedagogy of the Press, which is basically the most cited book now in education colleges. There's like no one more cited in education than Paulo Freire. But it's, so what this dynamic does though is accelerating these contradictions. Is the goal is to surpass the current base ground state and to transcend into a higher level by synthesizing this like conflict, these two opposing sides. And that almost always means flattening hierarchy, which is why like the whistle's been blown on calling meritocracy into question. And so when you call calling meritocracy into question and like questioning that like the paradigm of whether competency should be our main means of discerning qualification or status in society, what you're doing is you're essentially like flattening them, like you're saying like, oh, we should redistribute the capital. We need to redistribute like the means of production. I mean, and so when that happens is like, then you start seeing things like gradeless policies and K through 12 schools, and these initiatives, these more holistic admission practices, and these where different random traits associated with high performance are then pegged as constructs of the oppressor and only specifically designed to oppress like the oppressed. So like they basically assume what they set out to prove. So they're saying there's these like traits and these constructs and these forms of like being in the world that privilege certain individuals. And by virtue of there being a hierarchy period, that shows that these tools are used to oppress the lower rung on the hierarchy. And so that there's no other like other interpretation, like, hey, maybe the competent individuals should be the ones that rise to the top in society, or maybe we should like value quantitative metrics over qualitative metrics, or like actual empirical data over different ways of knowing, or I believe they say it's like what, like life. It's not life experience. They have a different phrase for it, but what that is essentially doing is it's undermining the Enlightenment thought, that pretense of objectivism, and that lends itself to subjectivism and radical relativism. And when that happens, you can get to a point where everything where everything can be anything, because nothing means anything. Like there's no point to these constructs other than like malfeasance. And so that's why we've gotten to the point where if nothing means anything and everything is like a construct used exclusively by the oppressors, then that means we can start calling into question like fundamental like paradigms like gender and sex that even though they are so visceral to our reality, nothing's off the table because they've been building this program up subliminally for the last 100 years. And so like this wasn't an overnight thing where everybody just like lost their mind. It's like integrating these paradigms over time. It's been happening overtly in the academy since the 60s, but like it's been like pigeonholed this way since like it's been like since Hegel, basically, since the Fabian Society, like late 1890s. So that's kind of the short summary, over on the Frankfurt School and like critical theories. There's other existential schools with like Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. She's the famous feminist, Second Sex. They're French existentialists, and Foucault and Derrida. But those are they functionally do the same thing as the Frankfurt School.
Okay. No, I didn't realize how nuanced this is when it comes to like how deep, Marxism, I guess, kind of started and how much it's still underlying today. I'm going to go through some of these chats really quick. And anybody in chat, if y'all have a question for her, just send in a question and I'll read it off for sure. So getting banned from Reddit is nuts with all the human garbage that's in those threads. Yeah. Sergio, we should have a purple pill debate sometime. The purple pill needs more thought leaders in the sea of red and black. I know, man. I'll probably be doing a lot of debates soon against the red pillars. It's gonna be pretty fun. I'm gonna start tearing their ass up. Stream topic. I know she's really good, man. This is gonna be a good one. What's up, Live Love? How's it going? Soren Mass. This lady seems to know what she's talking about. She also seems to be extremely charming and well spoken. Yeah. True. Great guess. No, she is. Never heard of her. Who is she? She's pretty good. She's pretty big on Twitter. If you look up the right side of history, or right side of history, she got a pretty big Twitter account.
I might be search banned right now because I've been search banned for like a month, but
they really try to hold people back from growth if you're saying the truth, She's saying facts over feelings. Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna make it really simple in 5 words what she said. So I gotta ask though, when it comes to everything that you've learned, where do you think like religion ties to all of this? Like, do you think that religion is right about a lot of things, wrong about a lot of things? Do you think are you kind of religious yourself?
So I call myself a tentative agnostic, because I've been an agnostic atheist for like the past 7 or 8 years, but I've been like going down like this rabbit hole because it's really kind of made me doubt some of it's made me rethink my position on the Enlightenment, basically. And what I mean by that is the Enlightenment essentially does a similar thing to what the German idealists do, where the teleological endpoint is like uncovering the secrets of the universe via this method. We call this like the scientific method, via empiricism. And so what that essentially means is that they're claiming that universal truth is attainable, but they're also pleading to infinite regress in order to qualify that claim. So in order to say that there is objective truth, there is like a universal truth or a comprehensible universe, but in order to finally find that universal truth, that prevailing truth that applies like universally, then that we just don't have the technology to do that yet. And it's constantly deferring to a future date in order to somehow qualify that we have that this is the actual means for which you can discern universal truth. And so when you do that, that's functionally scientism. And so what scientism is it's basically just another like secular religion, because in order to make the claim that like we can like learn basically whether definitively there is a God or there is not a God, like the whether this like law of physics applies like universally, like throughout the universe in all conditions, etc. But we just haven't we just don't have the tools yet to figure that out. And so what that means is like in order to make that claim, you're making a faith claim, because that's not falsifiable. You're pleading to historical precedent in order to qualify this this extrapolation of what science has been able to do in the past. So you're taking a period of history that is only 300 years long, and you're saying, because X has been accomplished during this period of history, therefore it is possible to extrapolate that period of history and infinitely into the future and say the tools that we've been using right now lend themselves to a potential knowledge of universal truth. And so really, and if you really think about it, like that's no different than like the claims like Christianity is making, or Islam, or like Judaism, or any like the religions that are like considered like all religions unfalsifiable, but are unfalsifiable, is because it's making the same unfalsifiable claim, except the difference with religion is religion operates in the metaphysical domain. So like religion isn't saying they require the scientific method or empiricism in order to in order to acquire truth. Religion is saying it already has truth, and therefore you don't need to infinitely defer into the future. It's imminent, it's in the present, and like it is not necessarily something rational. You can't rationalize this like metaphysical concept of the nous. You just have to like have faith, like and almost have this like this instinctual or just like trust that there's this instinctual drive towards some higher form. Like in Neoplatonism, it's called the one, the nous, the world soul, and then like the corporeal reality, which is the material universe. And here's the thing, that like the problem is, so that leaves you with obviously two options, like a faith rooted in secular materialism, or faith rooted and the claim that like truth is imminent, and like you can't necessarily comprehend it in the corporeal reality, but like there is a truth, and like you don't have to defer into the future and in order to make a claim about in order to qualify your belief that there is a universal truth. And why that framing it in the way that they both require faith, and basically it's the decision of which faith I'm going to choose is important, is like Nietzsche said, right? He killed God, and so therefore you're left with two options. You're left with like some type of nihilism, or you're left with like utopian, like teleological ideologies. And so we see that now, like you can see that exactly in the youth culture, where like there's either like specifically, I would say like in Gen Z is extremely bifurcated politically. And you can almost like draw a line down the middle between Gen Z males and Gen Z females. Gen Z males have chose nihilism. Gen Z females have chose utopian idealism. Yeah. And both are listless, undirectional. Like they don't have any guidance. They're like hopeless, pointless, etc. And so I think religion is in a liberal democracy, in order to continue to have the freedoms that we have, like you need to plead to some sort of transcendental ideal. Because if you don't have a higher moral authority, and you have this much freedom, then things are going to fall apart, because there's no like, and part of that is because of individualism. We're extremely individually oriented, and that's just like in the way that's applied in our culture is it's extremely hedonistic. Like you are supposed to be like the point of life is basically maximizing pleasure. It's trying to increase your material comfort. And there's really like at the end of the day, there's no point. There's no actual. Everything is goal. Yeah.
Like you're still gonna die and lose it all. Everybody doesn't work for treasures in heaven anymore, because there is no heaven according to most people. But so you said that you said agnostic, right?
Yeah, I've been looking into like Orthodox Christianity for a while, but I'm still there's still some like personal like there's some like there's things I'm still like working out with that, especially with respect to like evolution. Like that's the real thing I keep coming, like I'm trying to remediate that.
I mean, I believe in evolution. Catholics perfectly believe in evolution. So I'm against Catholicism and Orthodoxy, but I'm a Protestant that believes in evolution, and like I think it perfectly goes hand in hand. Like I don't think that you can't have one without. Like I think two things can be true at the same time. You know. So like, why are you choosing Orthodoxy though?
Well, because of it has been the least susceptible to basically
Scrutiny.
infection.
Yeah, and they're also hard to fight because they're all really good at debating some of their points. But the thing is, I'm very much against Orthodoxy because for the same reason I'm against Catholicism. Like I don't believe in the idol worship, and when you really dig deep and you go back and back and back, all their creeds and what they believe are based off of the dreams of men. And they say that the Holy Spirit was filled with certain men. And if certain men all had like the same dream, it's like, all right, well, this must be the truth. And this is what the creed's going to be on. I don't trust man's dreams. So my thing is I don't go with Orthodoxy or Catholicism because I'm not going to go for traditional roles or do the traditional stuff. Jesus never said you had to break bread and drink wine every fucking week or two or whatever. Like he never said you had to do any of that. I just believe in being Christ-like and just going by what Jesus said and what Jesus did, and obviously taking it with a grain of salt, just like how you take evolutionary psychology with a grain of salt, evolutionary biology, everything. I think you take with a grain of salt. Like you don't believe it in faith. I believe in Christ, you know, but faith is completely separate from like, you know, like what's real and what's happened.
I don't know if like you want to, because this is a rabbit hole, but so Protestantism did some interesting things that I believe are at cause for a lot of like what we see now.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
And specifically in part of that is like Sola Scriptura, and it's where each man is almost like a church unto himself. And so like infinitely schismatic biblical interpretations. And so with that, right. And so what is that like functionally? That's radical relativism. That's what like the left, that's what the left like they've been doing. They've been saying, oh, well, I feel like this should be interpreted through this lens or through my lived experience. I feel, and so there's no actual moral authority. There's no actual like eye towards like a transcendental golden thread, like per se. And so that has kind of created this like this atomized individualism that have lent themselves to the disintegration of like religiosity and not only in the West but in the world, and also to like the like absolute destruction of like community ties and localism and kind of like looking towards things external to yourself for guidance and like for moral authority. But now we are in a situation where we're told to look inward for guidance, for authority, for like purpose, and that's functionally what queer theory is. It's like I'm just acting out my true self. I'm like being who I was meant to be, and or I'm going on a journey of self-discovery where like discovering who you are like in relation to like the world is just basically based on random whims, like feeling like temporary wants and desires, and that's inherent, that will inherently lead you to nihilism and just pointlessness.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Let me go through these chats real quick. He said, I hate agnostics. They're like, bi people, pick one, don't sit on the fence. I was agnostic for a long time. She knows her stuff. Looking forward to our practice debate. You doing a practice debate with Lauren?
Yeah, we're doing a queer theory debate where basically we're arguing like for or against this concept of queer, of like it's an ontological debate about like queer as the default, queer as the center, and I'm like arguing like as the, I guess, the gender ideologue, where I'm arguing that like I'm taking the position that queer is the default out of which cis heteronormative patriarchy and white supremacy emanated. Like it's on if you imagine a number line, this is how they describe it. There's a paper called The Ontology of the Couple. It was published in like 2019, where they describe queerness, like queerness, right? It's a political identity. That's why like we hear like there's LGBTQIA plus whatever, and now there's being queer. That's a political like identifier. But now they're saying that everyone is queer. Everyone's queer at birth.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like this entire process is extremely similar to just an inverted version of Christianity, where you are going through a process of rebirth. Like you're born into the world, sin or the world or cis heteronormative patriarchy has corrupted you, and now you're going through a process of requeering yourself, basically being born again. It gets really
deep, nuanced.
I don't, but like you can see the overt like religiosity in these different like ideologies where they involve a process of like rebirth, but the rebirth is often like what we would call degenerate activities.
That is so mind-blowing. It is because like I always talk about how like, you know, obviously religion's kind of gone now, like atheism, agnostic, like this is something that's so normal today over the last 50 to 100 years. You know, so many people have walked away from, you know, regular religion, like or Abrahamic religions and stuff. So it's really, I've always said that that's why there's so many people who believe in astrology, is because it's like, well, they're just looking for another religion. But you just made me realize that's what the whole woke shit is. Like it's the queer like, shit is. It's like literally that's the religion. Like, oh my god, that's crazy.
It's a teleological utopian ideology, and so what they're doing is they're trying to bring the kingdom of heaven on earth. Yeah, that's what Marxism does. That's what like Hegel spoke about, how like the German government at the time was this ideal state, and it was like the human like character, like human nature and the state go back and forth in a dialectic manner and basically like feed off each other and shape each other ultimately towards this like end goal called the absolute ideal. And the absolute ideal is basically just heaven. And so what they're doing, and they take a lot of this from the social gospel. So in postmillennialism, there's this in Protestantism, there's this idea that you, in order to facilitate the second coming of Christ, you have to prepare the earth to be as perfect as you can. So that means you have to do good works to basically, I guess, spread some shallow idea of kindness and well-being. And specifically with the social gospel movement in the early 20th century in the United States, which basically gave us Wilsonian idealism, which gave us the Federal Reserve in part. That was a convergence of a bunch of that's a different conversation. But they typically, like Christianity, had done good works and helped the community on a decentralized level. Like you would help your community at the local, like through the local church in a voluntary manner. The social gospel really kind of switched that up, and they were like, no, like this is not sufficient in order to like ameliorate society to a sufficient level to like facilitate the second coming of Christ. We have to get in to basically weaponize the government apparatus and heal society from the top down. Well, the problem is like this just ended up turning into like a super shallow, inverted version of like Christianity, where empathy was this like exalted. It was almost this empathy was interchanged with the idea of virtue, I guess, or morality, or like repentance. The goal is to always be empathetic of literally everyone in any position, like no matter like what they've done, like who they are. Like empathy is like more important than basically all else. And so what that means is you're basically creating a death cult where you will eat yourself from the inside like to the outside, because if you're like, because kindness and Sure. Like I mean, you should be kind and you should be empathetic, but empathy is not good in and of itself. That's like saying, like to own a gun is an act of like moral good in and of itself.
Yeah.
Empathy is a neutral concept. Like, and so just because you feel the emotion of empathy, that does not necessarily
It
mean
can be a
you
bad thing. It can be
yeah,
a good
yeah,
one.
and
It can be
oftentimes
both.
it is a bad thing because it like now we've created like empathy has become like synonymous with virtue and morality. And so the more outward empathy you alleged like you can show that you have for mankind, like the poor and like the dejected, the more the higher your status in some of these like utopian like socialist circles. And so what that means is it's an uncritical view of like kindness and empathy. And so if empathy is a end in of itself, if empathy is virtue in and of itself, like expressing empathy is the end goal. And so therefore you must express empathy uh, at every single tier of society, and it doesn't matter at what cost to yourself or at what cost to society. Like you're just constantly engaging in this weird like performative display of empathy that becomes progressively more shallow and progressively more counterproductive as
Yeah.
like the dialectic progresses. um but
It's crazy that some of these takes are so nuanced because like I think about these on a base level, you know, but to see it in the deep way that like you've kind of read and taken it by reading these other, you know, people, it's crazy how deep it really gets. Wait, what does he say? She knows her stuff looking for, okay, yeah. Man's ordered a pizza. I didn't order pizza, man. My girl made me an awesome dinner of potato and rice and carrots and beef, man. That's not fucking pizza. Not idol worshiping. You know, Lauren, you know what I hit Catholics with. I'm sorry. We'll have to debate it soon. I feel a bit like praying myself right now. Yeah, go pray. For fuck's sake, I keep accidentally pressing the hearts. I can't do a Scottish accent for you today, Hillary. It's not Tuesday. What can we do to push back against wokeness? What do you think we can do to push back against wokeness?
localism and community.
Religion.
And right, that's facilitated like through religion.
Yeah.
And I think like in part of the way religion like just mechanistically could potentially like do like serve that purpose is it forces engagement in community, like if because it forces active participation in church, which is fellowship is community. And so therefore like if you're going to church and you're like I guess meeting people and hearing about people's like personal lives, and it kind of like forces you to exit yourself a little bit because we're constantly online, we're constantly like in the like we can choose to be 100% like self-absorbed like 100% of the time. And especially because social interaction now is like for all intents and purposes completely voluntary. We can we can do all of our socialization through our little boxes and never actually have to engage with anybody like on an actual like physical level, and like observing body language and like because you're not going to get the same type of you're not going to get to know people the same like via video streams or FaceTime or Twitter or whatever, just because that element of humanity is kind of mediated by the internet. And so it's like it feels like a simulation. It's like everyone I'm interacting with is an NPC. They're basically just a virtual avatar, and that can basically lead you into a narcissism spiral, because if everyone else is a simulation, then the only thing that matters is your wants, your own desires, like how much you feel aggrieved by the position society has placed you in, et cetera, et cetera. And so like we have no real mechanisms of facilitating those daily interactions with like different tiers of society, like elderly people, children, and church combines that all in one, where like there's families with small children, there's elderly people, like, and so that kind of reifies that like eternal thread of like where like this spans back generations and generations and generations. I'm connected to a community on a generational level spanning back across time. And so if you sever that kind of interaction, all you have is your little box and an avatar, and you're totally disconnected from like, I guess, the continuity of human history, of human tradition, of
Community.
human like religion. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is actually like the biggest reason why I do what I do. Whenever I was like young, like 12, 13, 14, I went to a church. I was a little nerdy kid in school, and like I became friends with like these church kids that started coming to my junior high, and they got me to go, and it was a really good like Assemblies of God church. But it really changed my life. Like I went there like almost every day. It was people called it a cult in my hometown because people that were a part of it were very much a part of it. And I see everybody struggling today. And I think that we talked in another X space, and it was the Incel X space. I think you were in there. Yeah, and that was like where I first like heard you talk. It's just so funny because you sound like how what's his name said. He said that you sound like a 13-year-old boy before his bar mitzvah. Because I think it sounds like you had a retainer or something when you were on in that. I don't know.
I wear a retainer, so I might have.
That's what it was, but it was just so, his description was so fucking on point. But it's just really funny because like in that space, you know, I was arguing for people to just be in communities. Like I'm about to drop a program that's just where guys can go to be around more women, to be in a community, you know, outside of church. And when it comes to people doing these things, like to me, it's common sense. To me, it's like it's common sense that you're supposed to be around other people and we're supposed to have community and stuff like that. Do you think that this is going to become more and more normal, like people like me trying to not only monetize but also try to push people more towards these type of social interactions? Or do you think that we're just going down like this horrible fucking trail and it's just going so fast and so bad, like everybody's just kind of fucked? Like,
yeah,
I'm kind of just fighting against a lot of bullshit and it's not going to work.
I think it is going to get a lot worse.
Oh no.
But and so part of this is the way like social media works. Social media is social media algorithms are propelled on conflict. Because that's what drives clicks. That's what drives attention.
Which is money.
Well, yeah, but it's dialectical. So right back to what I was talking about, like accelerating contradictions. It's it frames the world and like kind of like back to like the church thing where there's nuance, there's multiple tiers, like there's like tiers of hierarchy, tiers of age, this thread, this tradition that spans back generations. But like when all this is condensed into a couple little pixels on your screen, you reduce the world into like good team, bad team. Like, and like completely, like it eliminates, not only does it eliminate that, like that human element of the other side, but it also eliminates like all nuance. And also because of the way social media works, even if you acknowledge that there is nuance, that like there is parts of like this side that you've like found yourself aligned with that are like extreme or wrong, you have to double down because it's an increasing like polarization cycle where if you do not basically espouse every single one of your team's viewpoints to an absolute T, then you're going to be attacked by everyone constantly all the time. And so what that kind of does is it pigeonholes people and to like either it forces them into like silence because they just don't want to deal with like the hate and the negativity constantly, and the nitpicking, or just forces them to conform. And so now you have two increasingly like bifurcating like segments on either side of any issue, and the more polarized it gets, the lower the likelihood of any type of external community being possible, especially because our lives are like mediated by screens. The more and we really don't know what's real and what's not, because when you're online, when you're on social media, like you're aware that you're probably getting a false perception, but you don't know to what degree that that perception is false. And so when you but your experiences on social media, what you observe, like these like arguments, they're updating your like schematic understanding of the world. They're updating your heuristics. And so when you go back and you have interactions with people in real life, those like you're potentially bringing that baggage into your real life interactions and your real life conversations. And even though there's no evidence that like anything that occurs online is extrapolatable on any given interaction, because right, like the people who are interacting online, like I believe like Twitter is representative of like 5 to 10% of like the middle to upper middle class, and like it's extremely unrepresentative of the general population. But we're interacting on Twitter, we're interacting on Reddit, on the like social media, on YouTube, and we're going out and we're assuming that translates like that is like one over one, like superimposable on real life. It's not. But I do believe to some extent social media front runs like real life. And so like if a trend is slowly like gaining momentum on social media, chances are you'll probably see that on the news or the pundits talking about it a couple months to a couple years down the road. So it's not necessarily that I think social media and like platforms can't facilitate community. I just feel like they can't do it fast enough or effective enough to stop the snowball from rolling down the hill.
Like I obviously like help a lot of guys, but like if you could give advice to like guys or women that are like trying to date today, like what kind of advice would you, or I mean, like what would you say is like the best thing to do?
Stop reading or stop taking the things you see online as representative, because I see a lot of like there's a lot of degenerate stuff that people say and do online, and oftentimes it's hyperbolic. They don't even really mean it. They're just posturing. Like, for example, I mean, some do mean it. Like, some people are just like insufferable and awful people, but I believe like a good chunk of the time people are posturing, like, and oftentimes they're posturing to the same sex. Because like, for example, with like the red pill debate, where you're talking about like a woman wants like $5,000 to $10,000 a month to upkeep her lifestyle. I believe that was like one of the girls in the most recent whatever podcast, where she said that like her minimum requirement is like a $5,000 to $10,000 like upkeep a month.
Jesus Christ.
And then like Andrew started like interrogating her about that, and like it was so obvious that she couldn't even conceptualize what $5,000 to $10,000 looks like, what spending that much money looks like. And so
no, she's a red flag.
And so a lot of it is just grandstanding, and because there's so much noise on social media, if you are not intentionally ridiculous and intentionally hyperbolic and shocking, you're like, no one's going to care that you have a normie opinion.
Exactly. And a lot of people know that. Yeah.
Like, well, people know that they know it. Like, the logical part of their brain knows that, hey, I've actually never met a woman or a man in real life who thinks these things. But like, we're not, human beings aren't necessarily rational, right? We create heuristics, and then we rationalize those like heuristics like post hoc. And so we have these emotions, these visceral reactions to these things on social media, and partly because a lot of time we need to go out and get a hobby, and we're just bored, and so now we're like essentially like rotting our brain, like in consuming this degeneracy, and inadvertently like legitimately altering our own personalities and our own perceptions of the world like drastically. And we're creating a new pseudo reality for ourselves that is affecting the way we interact with the real world. And so even though our logical brains are like, this is not, I know this is probably not extrapolatable and this is not representative, but when I go and I'm looking to date someone, just like then I can't necessarily, like, I'm speaking hypothetically, that I can't necessarily like separate my like this like logical part where I'm like, I know this is not representative. I can't separate that from like the visceral emotional reaction I now have associated with the opposite sex. Now I'm thinking, oh, well, I know that's not representative, but what if? Like, should I be on the lookout? How frequent is this occurring? Or do women think like this? Do they actually think like this? Or am I, maybe they do think like this. They just aren't telling me in real life, and people are being honest online. And so you're kind of like going through this like process of kind of like, I guess, bargaining with yourself about how to apply this newly acquired heuristic. And it completely, like, whether you like consciously aware of it or not, it completely alters the way you interact with the world.
Yeah. No. What do you think whenever it comes to what I talk about? Like I don't know if you know what I talk about, or like when it comes to my opinion on red pill and stuff. What do you like? Do you agree with the red pill? Or are you against the red pill?
So I see the red pill and I see feminism as dialectical opposites.
I agree with you on that.
And they basically feed off each other and encourage each other and propel the dialectic forward. And that's why we see this progressive bifurcation. And if you look like the divergence of political opinion between the sexes corresponds with the rise of algorithmic social media. I actually went and looked into this when algorithms were first utilized on social media, which is basically just putting in front of people, based on like a series of of equations, depending on how long a person spent on a post, how many comments they left, etc. And so oftentimes that correlated with the most outrageous things. And so the rise of like algorithmic social media started around 2011, 2012. I believe it was either Instagram or Facebook that started it, and Snapchat followed up in like 2015. With I believe it was their news stories. But what that basically did is, one, it's creating these echo chambers, and two, it's creating like multiple alternate realities that aren't compatible at all with like reality itself. And so when you have like two people, like, or two groups of the population who are supposed to be romantically involved, but they have two totally different schematic frameworks for what reality is, then you're not going then that's not sustainable. That's not that's not going to work, and it's going to end in basically chaos. Because how are you going to then, if you've both grown up on the internet, if you've both grown up and like echo chambers that are representative of like the polar opposite of each other, and you're both being told and fronted the worst possible the worst possible things about the other sex, the worst possible
because of the algorithm.
And then so when you go and you try to when you're playing that out in real life, it's like you're probably much more apt to give up very quickly. Because if for example, if you did not have this schematic view of the world, and you go and you ask someone out, or you go on a date and it doesn't go well, you're not you're gonna you're gonna be leaning more on your logical part of your brain as opposed to this schematic that you've created, and you're gonna be thinking, oh well, that was just a one-off, or that was just a bad date. I'll better luck next time. But if you're operating based on the schematic, and you go on that date and it's a bad date, well, that bad date was a bad date because all women are functionally blah blah blah, or all men are functionally blah blah blah. And so then that probably lowers the likelihood you're going to want to redo that over and over again, because you've already come to the conclusion that it's fruitless.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Adam, they want us to pretend that only the last 8 years existed, nothing before that. I don't know what that was reference to.
I believe that was a reference to algorithmic social media, algorithm-driven social media. And so there was no other dynamic previous before the internet. There's the internet has been the only time that's that you should be referencing with respect to how to behave, or where to get your morality from, or sex dynamics. You're only supposed to reference your own anecdotal experience, or your own interactions, or your own observations mostly drawing from the internet. You're not supposed to like, oh, listen to your grandparents about how your grandparents operated, or your parents, or even like cousins or married relatives. Like, and so we're getting our idea of what relationships should look like from some of the most dysfunctional people unironically on the planet. Like the people who are going out of their way and becoming like pushers of grievance theories, basically, which is what feminism and like red pill is they're oftentimes like deeply like hurt individuals and deeply dysfunctional as a result. And so, and it's at that point, it's the blind leading the blind into hell.
So do you think red pill truths are bad, or do you think the red pill content creators are bad? Did you watch the debate that me and Andrew Wilson just had?
Yeah. So yes, and I have like some slight contention on how it feels like part of it is we're arbitrarily like lassoing a set of facts, right? We're making a set of declarative statements, and then we're saying, what is it's called there? What Andrew was functionally doing, he was applying logical positivism to the red pill. He's saying like the application of this set of facts and who's applying this set of facts and who is the basically face of this set of facts is not necessarily relevant to any like qualitative assessment of that movement's net good. And so I don't necessarily believe you can, like, when we're talking about this isn't theoretical physics. Like social movements are context dependent and like period dependent. And so when we're analyzing the net effects of a social movement, we can't just isolate those in a hermetically sealed bubble and then look at just the declarative statements outside of all of the context and all the downstream effects. That's like saying that that Marxism has nothing to do with like the Frankfurt School, even though they say they're Marxist. That's
I would say that it is a part of it, but like it's just like saying that Catholics, are bad, so all Christians are bad. It's the same as saying that, because like I'm red pill. I don't say any of the shit that they fucking say. I don't preach fucking sleeping around. I think that you should keep your body. I only preach relationships. Like, I'm the opposite of them, but I use evolutionary psychology to get to the point where I'll beat them over the head with their own fucking red pill stick.
But there's the problem. Like, because now you're operating off of two different ideas of what red pill is. So now we already have a bifurcation in applications of this set of like declarative statements. And so
I'm going based off of the one definition by the Godfather. The Godfather of the red pill,
or Rollo, or whatever.
Yeah, because that's his one definition that everybody goes by. That it's a praxeology, as he says. That's what he calls it.
But for example, like when we're like, I'm in law school, right? So when we're interpreting a statute, we're looking at the legislative notes. We're looking when the legislature was like passing this bill. What was the context? What did they say they wanted to achieve in passing this bill? What is the historical context? And then we look to the actual literal definition of the word. So even in a legal context, when we're trying to define something that is sometimes like ambiguous and the boundaries are blurry of when it starts and when it stops, we're looking at both the context and the literal meaning of the words and the contextual meaning of the words.
Yeah, and just like when we study the Bible. Yeah. Yeah.
And so part of the problem with specifically like new internet age social movements is it run like I like to analogize this conception of the red pill to feminism, because there's like, you ask someone you ask 10 women who identify as feminists what feminism means, they'll come up with 10 different totally variant answers. True. And so like a similar thing is with the red. So it's like when it's a relatively novel, especially internet, like promulgated movement, you're going to have a bunch of different interpretations that lend themselves to a bunch of different applications. And so now when that's interfacing with the world, with social media, like depending on who's preferred, I guess, application of that subdeclarative statements is how that person is going to characterize that movement. And so now you, like, for example, with feminism, you have radical feminism, you have liberal feminism, you have second wavers, third wavers, fourth wavers, you have feminist Marxists, you have like feminist materialists, and like it goes on and on and on. And like in reality, those they have a same structural underpinning, which is like right praxeology, but just because it's like the skeleton is the same doesn't mean that skeleton, like, I guess, moves through, like, I guess, the social atmosphere the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with trying to either qualitatively or quantitatively analyze the net benefit of the red pill. Is you ask 10 different red pillers what red pill means, you get 10 different answers. Same thing with feminism. It's like, and like,
well, if I asked you, what do you think it is?
I think it's partly, it's almost an inverse feminism. Basically, it's saying that women are up here in the hierarchy and the dating marketplace. Women hold basically they are the capital owners, like the bourgeois class, and they basically determine they try and hoard the best, or they concentrate, I guess, sexual power or sexual I don't know, I wouldn't know how to phrase that, into a few select domains that primarily benefit them. And so it's not like a partnership or this mutually beneficial act. Sex is transactional, and the way that women have, I guess, created or shaped the dating market or the internet or whatever has essentially allowed all male-female interactions to basically allow the female to extract labor value in Marxist terms from the male. And that's how that kind of, it's creating kind of an oppressor-oppressed dialectic.
But that's what you think, like, the red pill, or what guys think the red pill is?
No, it's not what I
like. I want to know what you think the guys think red pill is.
Okay, that's what it looks like and plays out in practice. I think they think they're responding to what they perceive as reality. They're consuming probably primarily based off of what they've seen on the internet, but also probably like some like scattered interactions here and there that they use as confirmation bias to cement that framework. And so like they are extremely nihilistic in their view of I guess of the predeterminism of human characteristic. For example, like, I mean, which isn't necessarily evolutionarily supported. Like, humans are apex predators primarily because of our ability to adapt. We are highly socially adaptable, and that is why humans are spread globally on 6 out of 7 continents, and we are the apex predator in every single environment we're in. So clearly there is like a high ability, a high adaptability, like threshold, like, and so you aren't necessarily able to delineate what's nature versus what's nurture. But I feel like the red pill, like unsubstantiated, without supporting it to a proportionate degree, assumes that the dating market, what we're witnessing in the dating market, what we're witnessing online, is essentialized. So it's an innate characteristic as predetermined by genes. It's not necessary, because obviously genes do matter. Like, there is heritability, there is like,
but it's closer to 50-50 than it is 100% your life.
And I believe even like with IQ, the estimate is like 20 to 40% heritability. And so like that is a large, like, that's a lot of lateral movement. And so to take the view that women are basically formulaic, almost like robots, which I believe is another downstream effect of the internet. Like, women are pre-programmed robots and will respond to situations in a scripted manner in accordance with this this thing that's written in their genes, and that has predetermined their behavior and their responses in all cases. And so it's very nihilistic, and that oh, it's pointless, hopeless, like women are transactional exclusively, or the feminists do this with men. Like the only reason men want wives or they want girlfriends is because like men want free labor, or they want to be able to wield authority over somebody, or they want a bang maid or a sexual servant, blah, 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 where it's this super like, it's a very materialistic way of, and I don't mean materialistic in like material items. I mean like secular materialism. Like the only thing that I guess matters with respect to truth value or provability is what is right in front of your face, or how you interpret what is right in front of your face. And the appearance of things is the only thing that matters, not necessarily the ontological things in of themselves, like that question of being. And so that's where I believe the red pill goes wrong in a similar way where feminism goes wrong, but they're inverses. The red pill is hyper materialistic. Feminism is highly idealistic. And so red pill assumes concretely that there is no mutability in the sex. Like there is no variance, there is no mutability, like there is no there is no influence.
It's all
in the
nature.
environment. It's all nature. And feminists assume the exact
opposite. Nurture. They think it's all nurture. Yes.
It's like exact. That bifurcation is exact.
That's what I was just about to bring up with you. I was just about to bring that up. Yeah. That's one of my favorite things I always bring up. So do you also think it's dimorphic in the fact that women are more communal and men are more hierarchical, and we are always going to have this problem with like communism versus, capitalism, because men are always going to push for hierarchy and women are always going to push for more community and communal?
Well, so ideally there's an equilibrium, and I believe like obviously
it takes us working together to be perfect.
And so that's why I like community based / localistic systems of ethics, where you're not necessarily like, not everything should be centered around like the individual and the individual's wants and needs. You shouldn't necessarily be taught that success in life is basically propping the individual up. Success in life is being able to benefit your community, not the collective, the community, which is your like aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, your church. I'm not talking about like some rando like across in a different country. Because that would be like the human collective, because then you're expected to sacrifice arbitrarily and basically infinitely. There's no line, but like there's if you're like operating in a localistic or a community framework, then the community like is set up to allow outliers to not like to be able to exist in that community, and they get the benefit of those individuals that sit on the tails of the bell curve, and the benefit goes towards the community. It's not necessarily for individual aggrandizement. And so like in that way, that drive for individual self-expression it's modulated a bit, but it's still repurposed for the benefit of the community. It's not necessarily in a hedonistic death spiral where it's just like you're just constantly like more and more and more self-expression, more and more self-aggrandizement, more and more propping up of the self. You're like turning towards the community, and like your actions, and you're like utilizing your, I guess, difference or your like your variable traits, your like, I guess, variable like talents and gifts, like intelligence, blah blah blah, to not only like because that also allows for vertical movement. Like you can be considered a highly competent and respectable individual among your community, but like your respectability is measured by how much you help your community. And so it's kind of reframing like prestige from like, from conflating virtue with capital to conflating like virtue with
how altruistic you are.
Hardworking and altruism, but not altruism as a end in of itself, which would be collectivism. And
Yeah,
so,
you're starting to sound like Ligma a little bit right there. You're starting to scare me. I was getting a little scared.
no, no, I'm not I like Nassim Nicholas Taleb's like model of localism. He has this he has a bunch of books, a book series called Incerto, where he basically talks about fat tails and probability. But his idea is with localism, it's the most anti-fragile system, because if basically a system of smaller city states where the different city states are mutually interdependent, but it's not so big as like you're going to have vastly different cultures or ideologies within one city state, and so it's stable on the local level,
On the
but also
cellular level, yeah.
but also you're not going to have like inter-city state warring, because small states can't necessarily be 100% self-sufficient. So you're dependent on a trade network and like basically reciprocity regionally, but you're also a highly stable unit. And
Kind of like a smaller states' rights, but on a super small scale.
Yeah. And the problem with like states' rights is like, because like California, how many, like 30 million people in California, like that's not that kind of defeats the purpose of like federalism. Defeats the purpose of having like almost like an independent unit or pseudo independent unit, like under the control of a ideally looser, like less strong, like federal system, because like that doesn't, because you're going to have to keep increasing the power of the federal government as each state becomes more diverse and viewpoint and like less homogenous. Because you're going to have increasing disagreements, increasing quarrels, like less like societal trust. And so therefore you're going to have to strengthen like the power of the mediator, which is the federal government. And we've seen that just over the past 150 years. And so I don't necessarily know if like how things are going, it's currently sustainable, but there needs to be some, the way the polarization is headed, I don't know if it's going to necessarily be self-resolvable.
Have you ever heard of a resource-based economy or the Venus Project?
No.
Yeah, you're a little too young for when like this came out when I was like 14, 15 years old. But there's this video that was called Zeitgeist. It was like a really big deal back then when YouTube was first growing, and you should look. I'll send you a link to it. But a guy named Jacques Fresco, who was he was just a socio-engineer. He really just built like the first ever resource-based economy kind of city thing. And it sounds very communistic and stuff, but basically just he proved in 1974 on a Larry King interview that we had all the technology right then to have a perfectly sustainable economy based around our resources, not based around the monetary system and creating dollars, but more based around, do we have the resources? And it's definitely want to like talk to you more about that if you knew about it, but you don't know about it. But also, whenever it comes to the sexual dimorphism and stuff, do you like in the Bible, it really talks a lot about how it like kind of goes God, man, woman, child. There's a lot of points where you can kind of see that women want a guy who's dominant and they want to be a sub, or they want a man who's a leader, usually in certain cases. Do you think that I'm not a chauvinist. I'm not saying that men are better than women, but would you say that like women want a man that's a leader? Like, and in general, men should be more of a leader.
Obviously, like, people will get offended like about like when the problem is like when you're talking about averages, like most people don't understand how averages work. So when you're saying in general, you're literally talking about smack middle of the bell curve. And typically like dimorphism looks bimodal. So there's overlapping tails. But like in general, and probably I would say majority maybe, that would be the case. Obviously you're going to have outliers. Like on any trait, you're going to have overlapping tails and you're going to have outliers. But
yeah, when I say in general, I always mean like 51%.
Yeah, I was mentioning that because like I feel like a lot of contention that people take with like just speaking in statistical generalities is they don't understand what an average is.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say like it's just because one person drives the car. Like if I go to the grocery store with my girl, like I don't know what fucking to buy. Like I'm not the good part, like she's the leader, like she's gonna make those decisions. And you know, but like there's other instances where she's a passenger princess. She don't like to drive ever. She has a car, she just don't want to drive it. So I'm the leader in that kind of role. I'm always gonna take her where she wants to go or whatever because she doesn't like to drive. So it's just like I think that there's instance where in general for the most part women want to be with a guy who's a leader. But yeah, I was just asking because you already understand all the other dimorphic stuff, but there's a lot of women online that are very strict about I want equality, like they're like they want relationships that are always equal, and I just don't think relationships are equal. I think that there's always one person with more of the leverage. There's always one person that's like looking up to the other, admiring them, and that's
Yeah,
something
I
that
feel
like
like
kind
ebbs
of
and
is.
flows. Like, because from I've always been told marriage is not supposed to be 50-50. It's supposed to be a sliding scale. Like, 'cause you're going to have ebbs and flows.
Here, your internet's cutting
Marriage,
out a little bit. If you want to check it and make sure that it's working right, it it should be okay. But it was just kind of rubber banding a
yeah,
little bit.
is it better now? Or is it still?
Yeah, it's better. That's perfect.
You're not going like, to say like draw an arbitrary line and be like marriages have to be 50-50, all manifestations is a relationship, and that's not indicative of how like real life happens. It's like from day to day sliding scale of like who gets the slack today, and like there's no when keeping score at like, oh well, I did 51% of the emotional or physical labor last week. It's your turn to do 1% this week. That's like not existing. It's ridiculous and it's narcissistic.
Yeah.
That's like one relationship. If relationship to you like keeping a tally.
Oh, it's not about keeping a tally. I was more like bringing up like
I was referring to the people like the like wrote 50 people you mentioned.
yeah. It's more about like the admiring thing. You know, I just really think that like there's two different clean like Dr. David Buss talks a lot about this in evolutionary psychology and different books that he's written, and it's just, you know, there's usually a dynamic where like a woman's long-term main strategy is where it's kind of in her frame. She's kind of with a guy that where what I mean by frame, I mean like he's like who's making the rules. And like because usually like one person's making the rules and there's another person that can kind of break the rules and it wouldn't make a difference for them. But it looks like it might be lagging still a little bit. But I'm gonna just read through these last comments and see if anybody asked a question, to see if like your internet clears up a little bit between now and then. Is it true that the idea of empathy is becoming more and more shallow to the point now it has now disappeared? The idea of empathy is becoming more and more shallow. I don't really know what he means. Do you know what he means? Oh, I think you might have. Did she fully lose her connection there, guys? Oh, you cut back right in. You
There
there?
it goes. Okay, I'm switching to my LTE.
Oh no, it's perfect now.
Okay.
Okay. You owe me one. Soren said, is empathy described by Abrahamic religions the same with the empathy described by the queer theory? Can you answer that?
No.
Yeah.
Because like empathy like it's can be manifested by like the idea of the golden rule, like right, treat your neighbor as yourself. Empathy and queer theory is like exclusively performative. The like right, it's the golden rule isn't necessarily like it's a means in order to be more virtuous, in order to be more Christ-like. Like you treat your fellow man as you would yourself, because your fellow man is also like a like made in the Creator's image, and not in with queer theory, like empathy is almost exclusively performative, and so like the goal is like to get into circumstances to where you can perform empathy, to where you can show empathy, and like if you show empathy, then that therefore means you have virtue. Like just because in the Abrahamic, like in Christianity, like just because you treat your neighbor like yourself, that doesn't mean you are literally Christ. That doesn't mean you are literally perfect. It just means that like you are, like, I guess turning
being
towards
Christ-like.
Christ. Yeah, there's being
Yeah.
it's more Christ-like. It's not necessarily you're not Christ. Like you're like that isn't the end. Like it's not an end in of itself.
Yeah, it's weird that they use the word empathy because, like, yeah, I don't think people can empathize easily unless you've gone through it. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what empathy means. Is means that you've gone through it, and like I can understand to sympathize with somebody,
Well,
like
that's on purpose.
because they're like trying to manipulate the word.
Well, no, well, so they're creating a hierarchy. They're like inverting the hierarchy. So what they're doing is, they know like they're taking the actual definition of empathy, where it's like you can only like feel empathy if you could empathize with someone's experience, like if you experience something like similar or adjacent to it, and so that's why they exclude white people. You're like, because white people are not able to display empathy. They always have to be doing the work because they cannot empathize with like people
With
of color.
black people or something.
And
Yeah,
so it is a built-in cemented hierarchy where like therefore the capital owning class are the class who can display empathy, and the proletariat are now the white people who are infinitely doing the work. They're
Oh my
now the
God.
laboring class.
That is so crazy when you think about it that way. Like, because yeah, you can't empathize if you're the one that's on the top. This is
Yeah.
not possible. Adam said they recently did a study that showed that Gen Z boys are moving more right and Gen Z girls are moving more left. Yeah, that's another thing that I think is very natural. Guys moving to the right and women moving to the left. She addressed this. It's basically nihilism versus utopic view. Yeah. Discord ping. Are you talking? Oh, did y'all hear Discord ping? My bad. I thought I muted my Discord. I'll unless you sent me a message. Purple Pill Pod. The worst part of all is many bash marriage, yet are marriage giving advice in an era they have zero experience in and selling garbage to unaware, typical damaged people. It's sad. Yeah. The thing is, bro, I also bash marriage. I gotta say, I think that guys should only get married if they actually have a girl that really likes them, and because of the two different mating strategies that women have, sometimes, yeah, whenever they choose their long-term mating strategy, I don't think they really like that guy sometimes. And that's why so many guys are opting for the short-term mating strategy because the financial inequality. So that's what's kind of making it hard. Rolo's a hack. Don't appeal to false idols. Yeah, Rolo is a hack, dude. That guy hasn't dated since before AOL Messenger. It's actually ridiculous. People listen to him. What 50-year-old man wears a beanie? I know, right? Just shave your fucking head, dude. It's not that big of a deal. We're not going to make fun of you that bad. I would seriously not give a shit. It actually makes you look more like a beta bitch if you care a lot about what people think. Like, it's like, dude, just shave your fucking head. Like, you look like a boss not caring. RP isn't a praxeology. Can't be. Oh, I know, Don. Oh, dude, I need to watch that video that you sent me, or that you told me to watch. Isn't a lot of feminism based on confirmation
It's based
bias?
on
Is that true?
conflict theory, so it's
Huh?
unfalsifiable.
So it's just unfalsifiable.
Well, because it like assumes to be true that which it sets out to prove. Like in order for like they assume that in order for feminism to be applied, you have to assume that there is like a hierarchy predicated on exclusively the exploitation of the lower party. And so like feminism basically, like the reason why there is any type of like patriarchal like hierarchy, or why men are making more money is not because of like other confounders or other like irrelevant independent variables. It's because that men are intentionally doing that because they hate women, because like they want to oppress women, and
Yeah.
and so and they think that like everything like human nature is completely malleable, because that's a predicate of Marxism, of conflict theory. And so they have to believe that
It's all nurture. It's all blank slate.
right. When I mentioned that like Hegel thought like the human nature and society like dialectically fed off each other and shaped each other, that's what they want to do with like gender and like I guess sex identity, where like you change, like you from the top down, you change society, and you're hoping like it will modulate like human nature. You'll be able to like mold human nature like a ball of clay and form it into whatever ideal you think it should be, which is flat. It's their idea. It right, going back to that idea of like the on the number line where queer is the zero out of which hetero cis patriarchal white supremacy arises out of, like it emanates out of that zero and positions itself against in order to elevate itself. And so that's what they think like any type of like constructive norm is it's an iteration out of the flat hierarchy for the sole purpose of differentiating it of oneself, for positioning oneself above. And so what they're doing right now is they're trying to bring that back down to the flat, like back to the zero.
Yep.
To the queer.
Yeah. And so like you're like pretty smart. What's your IQ?
I don't know.
You want to reveal it?
I could. So I'll give a range. It's like 138 to 142. I don't.
You said 138 to 142.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, yeah, you're up there. You're super up there. So like, would you agree that like you're kind of a very exception to the rule? Like most people, you know, most women, you know, more average 100, you know, around there. Would you say that because a lot of things for relationships to work correctly, or for you to kind of make it through the world, you know, and have self-awareness and stuff, I think it's kind of directly linked to those things sometimes. And like, would you agree that like a lot of people are kind of like stupid monkeys, like kind of like retards? And like let's be real here, like there's like the world isn't all sunshines and rainbows. And like it's kind of hard to control a bunch of stupid people, you know, like people are kind of dumb.
Well, that's one of the arguments of why democracy doesn't work.
Or capitalism, because if you don't have somebody who's like constantly, you know, paying attention and fighting disinformation, then you can't fucking win.
Or just by virtue of like right, I believe the Jordan Peterson study was like below 80, is it 80 IQ? I believe it's like 10-15% of the population are so stupid that
hey, don't attack me.
are so stupid that it doesn't matter how much training they receive, they will always be a net negative to organizational like productivity. And that's why like the military has an IQ cutoff.
That's funny. No wonder they didn't let me in. I'm just fucking with you. I've never had an IQ test in my life. I just like to troll. But but what's something that I like to bring up all the time is there was a study that showed, you know, because like I always bring up, like, I don't think evolutionary psychology, like the things that I talk about, like these statistics, like obviously there's always the exception. And I think that the higher your IQ or the more intelligent you are, the more these things don't fucking matter. Like, who gives a fuck about who's the leader of the house? Like, who gives a fuck about, you know, like our senses that make us hornier? Like, if you're intelligent, you're not going to cheat. You're not going to make mistakes. Like, it's just how smart are you? But I just think most people are fucking stupid. So that's why we can look at these studies and we can be like, yeah, it's the stupid animal people, the monkey people. This is how they kind of still act, because they're still acting through kind of their genetics more. But what's sad is that even when you go up in intelligence for men, the higher IQ a man is, the more likely they are to cheat as well. So it's like, like
that's because like the smarter you are, the better you are at rationalizing things.
Oh yeah,
so,
true.
like,
Yeah, so you go rationalize the horrible shit you do.
Yeah, you can justify some pretty awful.
So have you tried to rationalize some horrible things you've done before?
Well, I mean, I feel like everyone, like nobody likes to think that they've done something bad, and so everyone rationalizes like the things they feel guilty about to some degree until they like take ownership for it. So I believe that no one's immune to that. But I think what's interesting is probably like while I guess like the carnal sins manifest more, and I guess like on a Bayesian distribution on like the lower the left side of the distribution probably are more prone to I guess like what like sins of the flesh, like drugs, etc., like being a degenerate, having like multiple different partners. I mean, that's true on the other side too, but I believe like the people on like the right side of the bell curve are more prone to almost like elevating themselves to the level of God. And what I mean by that is positioning themselves as like the leader or like the shepherd of the masses, the people who can solve the worldly problems that the lesser can't do themselves. And so that's just utopianism. That's a self-aggrandizing narcissistic delusion where you think that oh, well, I have been given X level of intelligence. Therefore, in order to be empathetic to the masses, I must institute this utopian program where I make sure that nobody makes, there's no basically lateral move, there's no vertical movement. Everyone is flat. Everyone makes the same, because I personally am a bleeding heart, like communist or liberal or leftist or whatever, for everyone who I see as beneath me. So that position, like, even though it's superficially like good-willed, it is like fundamentally narcissistic, because it's predicated on the idea, like looking down like below your like balcony and being like look at all these like peasants, they need my assistance because I'm
So
like
do you
I'm
not like
God.
objectivism?
Sorry.
Do you not like objectivism?
Well, so what? How are we talking about like objective morality, like a
like I'm talking like Ayn Rand, like Atlas Shrugged,
No, I
Fountainhead.
think
Like,
that's like Nassim Nicholas Taleb said, libertarianism is political philosophy for children, and except for Rothbard, which he said is economics for children written by children.
well, no, so I'm not a libertarian at all. Like, I definitely don't like
But
libertarianism. But the big thing, though, is I do believe that there's people like Elon Musk, though, that through capitalism, through free market, is changing the world more than anybody. Like, if we ever get off
Elon
this
Musk is a
fucking
good
rock, it's going to be
alien.
because of people like that.
He's a transhumanist. He's a techno-futurist. So
Yeah.
he has a religion. It's just predicated in this like teleological endpoint where like man becomes immortal through unification with the machine. And that is ultimately flattening the hierarchy, because think like the differentiation between human beings is we have different hardware.
1000%.
And so if we can
remove our wetware and add hardware.
Yeah, or like upload our consciousness to the machine, or just add a chip that basically flattens the hierarchy of that differential intelligence lends itself to, then that's the same thing as that's just grievance study for like different genetics. Because ultimately your goal, like your teleological goal, is flattening the hierarchy. That's what eugenics is too. Eugenics is also Hegelian and teleological. Eugenics wants to make like X region of the world homogenous.
Yep.
And what homogeneity is it's flattening the hierarchy. It's making things indistinguishable.
Fair,
and
equal.
That's what Marxism, like that's the same thing, just applied and like, or just implemented through different functional means.
Yeah, I totally get it. So whenever it comes to free will versus determinism, where do you fall on that spectrum? Have you researched like that, like a lot?
I've done a lot of. I know a lot about like I've seen like Richard Flynn, Jennings, or what, like I've dug into the IQ literature, or what's like, it's not Douglas Murray, it's the other guy. Douglas Murray is the British guy, the old white one who worked with Richard Flynn and Jennings on the IQ. He wrote the book The Bell Curve. I can't remember his name, but so I know like there is like, IQ is determinative or it's highly correlative with life outcomes. But right, there's still like laterality with respect to the decisions you make within your environment. And so although that you have an upper threshold and an upper cap, that is likely determined by your like genetics, like within that range, there is still the ability to exercise free will. So
well, even outside of like IQ though, I was asking more like on a religious sense. Do you think that your life is mostly determined by free will or a determinism or something in the middle?
I think by both, because I think like personality and like which lend themselves to what decisions you make, like what you're like driven towards. That's partly heritable, but like it's partly environmental. And so we cannot like to say that like definitively, oh, like basically things are determined from birth versus like definitively things are determined by free will, right? It's that one question that I was talking about with religion in the beginning, right? Because we cannot like to say categorically everything is predetermined. You have no control over everything. That's an unfalsifiable statement. Yeah. Because you're basically pleading to future advancement in order to qualify your truth claim.
Right.
And
Just saying nature's whole 100%. Yeah.
yeah, like you can't prove that. Like you can like find studies that suggest it to certain degrees, but I mean like right, like we're in a replication crisis. 50 to 60% of like psychology and sociology literature doesn't replicate. And sociology itself, or like psychometrics itself, doesn't necessarily like make a determinative claim about it can't really make a causal claim about nature versus nurture, or like determinism versus free will, right? It's basically we can try and craft our experiments to where we isolate for confounders, and and so when we're trying to attribute causality, we basically control for these external variables that could obviously confound the results. And so that's how in the social science research, that's basically how we attribute something to be causal of an end effect, is we like control for different variables. But that is still self-referential, because we're also assuming we're assuming something is true. Like, for example, with like statistical methods, in order to make a definitive claim about nature versus nurture, we're relying on the scientific method and statistical methods. So we're assuming these as axiomatic to the system, the environment for which we're observing the experimental conditions. And like statistics and the scientific method, right? They're still within the paradigm, right? They're not external to it. So we're using methods from within the system to measure the system.
Yes.
And so basically it's
the whole quantum physics thing. We're like we're not going to
referential, right? Because it's assuming what it sets out to prove. It's assuming like that right? Because each time the scientific method is applied, what you're functionally doing is it's a validation process for the scientific method. And so even though like you're trying to figure out a causal variable functionally, every time the scientific method is assumed to be true and is applied, it's just different iterations of a validation of that scientific method. So there is and this goes back to like the Kantian problem. Kant was basically is considered the climax of the Enlightenment. Immanuel Kant, he posed this problem with respect to the phenomenal and the nominal. Sorry, I need to take a sip of water. My throat's getting dry.
You're good.
But Kant basically said that like because everything we observe, like all of our truth claims, are essentially like mediated through through the phenomenal, through our experiences and our interactions with reality. That means everything that we observe is mediated through our subjective meat suit. And so because we cannot step outside ourselves, kind of like statistics is not outside of the system, therefore we are not capable of making or through, I guess, like objective means, through like means within the system, means we have developed within the system, we're not capable of making objective claims about ontological questions. And so he described this as the nominal. And so and that's functionally the transcendental. Like we are not capable of determining what something is in and of itself. We can only determine the outside layer because that's the only layer we can perceive.
Yeah, we can't transcend from where we are.
Yeah, because like you can only like theorize about what it would be like to observe this object outside of your meat suit. You can't actually exit your meat suit.
It's the whole 2D, 3D, 4D thing, like going into the next dimension.
And so the problem that poses, right, is now like Kant says, okay, well, then what is truth? How do we know if something is true? If we all are interacting with the world through different meat suits from different perspectives. And basically like his thing was like I guess different, coming to a consensus based on a uniform cause and effect. So, I hear somebody that says they are hungry. if they eat, they are no longer hungry. So it therefore must be true. And I also experienced the same thing. Therefore, it must be true that eating food is eating. It is a true statement that eating food will make you not hungry anymore. And so that's kind of how Kant was like, that this is how we discern truth. And that's kind of what the scientific method and empiricism sprung out of, where it's like, and it almost becomes instrumental where, so what happened with the scientific method was the scientific method was meant to be a method. It was not it's not making an epistemic claim about the things that it is, about the inferences that can be drawn from it. And so we use the scientific method like mechanically, like to create things based on things we have created in the past. And so we're building on, like, it's a functional tool. Just because something works, something is like repeatable in one specific domain in this like set of conditions and this span of time, that does not necessarily mean that that thing is capable of making an epistemic claim about truth. All that is saying is that this is functionally useful for developing this like furthering the development of this technology in this specific context. It's highly contextually dependent, because, for example, like, have you heard of, like Newton, right? And his like, in his like laws of gravity. Well, Newton could not accurately, like, Newton's formulas were insufficient. They were just theories. Yeah, they were insufficient to explain certain phenomena. And so Copernicus comes along and he goes, well, I can build upon Newton and make it more accurate. And then
stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, and then but problem with Copernicus, although Copernicus tied up some loose ends that Newton's formulas like had, Copernicus's theory could not explain, I believe it was the orbit of, it was either Uranus or Jupiter. It was one of the planets that like Copernicus' theory of gravity could not explain. And so we did not have a gravitational formula that could explain that orbit until Einstein. And now Einstein's like theories cannot explain certain, I guess, quantum mechanical phenomena. Or
and black hole stuff. Yeah.
And so
we're having to come up with new shit.
Yeah. And so we point to like these equations and these formulas and these methods as truth, while also, like, I guess, compartmentalizing the fact that these cannot be truth, because we know that they are not universally applicable. We know they are incorrect. And so this goes to the problem with the public education system, because we are not taught first principles. We are in a Prussian education model, and therefore we are taught the superficial understanding of, this is truth because the authorities say that this is truth, or because like an authoritative text that we've said is authoritative says it's truth. We don't actually explain like what truth is, what relativism is, what subjectivism is. We don't explain that like the empirical method.
I just think that if you extrapolate this to everybody, there's such a small percentage of people that even understand it.
And so that's the problem. And so like now when we're talking about policy debates and like the actual application of science to public policy, that's how we get scenarios like Fauci, because the average person is conflating science as an epistemic tool and science as a mechanical or methodological tool. Science was never meant to make absolutist truth claims. Science is always meant to be a methodology. That's like
written in pencil.
Yeah. So like so when it is a model, it is a predictive model, and like, so I can't remember who said this, but my professor who quoted this, or who came up with this quote, my professor quoted this in one of my biomedical engineering classes, and he said basically all models are wrong, some models are useful. And so like that right there, like that is the like science can be summed up by that statement, like
perfectly. Yeah.
And so when Fauci came along and Fauci was like, I am the
this
science.
Is how it is. Yeah.
I am the science. Like he's making like an epistemic claim about like being the arbiter of truth and knowledge. Yeah. That is a perversion of science. But most people did not have the conceptual toolbox in order to parse that and know what a categorically bullshit claim that was.
Yeah, yeah. Like we don't have an intelligent populace, so it's really hard to do things how we're supposed to. But I wanted to go back to determinism really quick. I wanted to ask something. Do you think that for evolution and for society and consciousness and everything to get to the point that we are at right now, do you think that there's some type of programming, there's something a part of this universe, maybe not the other multiverses, but this special one has something going on in it that made us get to this point? Or do you think that it's all just it's all just bullshit? Like for evolution to get to this point where we have consciousness and we do the things that we do, it's all just free will, just kind of just going wild with evolution.
So I am still unpacking this because evolution as a explanatory model, this is back to that like science as a method thing and science as a truth claim, because it gets kind of weird with evolution, because like evolution, like you're making inferences based on isolated like observations.
They use multiple different ways to test things, though. It's not like they just do carbon dating,
my undergrad's in biochemistry. I've like taken
okay, yeah, so you totally get it.
But the problem, like, right, like no one was there to observe evolution happen like from like the beginning of history. We can observe the Big Bang, isolated incidents. We can observe like natural selection. We can emulate like what we define as natural selection in a lab, in a petri dish. But the problem is like.
So how much do you respect the theories of what we uphold today?
Well, I respect them as effective and functional, like because they for the most part they're the best.
The best we can do.
Yeah, it's the best we can do. And so I've kind of been like compartmentalizing that with respect to like evolution as a functional model is an effective model for understanding how to, for example, like create like cancer drugs. Is it a good model for explaining however many billion years of like evolution? That's more like that's way more fuzzy. Like because I know I can observe cells in a petri dish. I can create like the conditions for which certain like phenotypes are selected for. But I cannot necessarily and I can extrapolate that all the way back to the beginning of history. But that's the same thing as extrapolating all the way forward and assuming that this method will be able to prove all truth claims. Yeah. And so it's just infinite regress, infinite deferral. And it's kind of cyclical. So it's going back to the Hegelian dialectic. Like our understanding of evolution is like a spiral shape. If you look up like what the Hegelian dialectic like looks like in I guess a modeled format, is it's a spiral, like, and it has a focal point. And so it's kind of like our understanding of both the future and the past is predicated on infinite deferral and like self-referentiality. And so we're basically making like functionally circular claims. Like how we get around that is we say, well, because right, in a lot of our understanding of science and our understanding in our application of like evolution and sociology, we're not necessarily thinking linearly. We're applying Hegelian dialectic in a lot of contexts. And Hegelian dialectic, Hegel defined the Hegelian dialectic as basically an end that presupposes the beginning. And the benefit of like defining it this way is you can say that your system is presuppositionless. So you can say that you are not making any assumptions in order, but like your system proves itself basically. And so that is what we are saying with scientism and with like self-referentiality and infinite regress, is we're saying, oh, well, our system proves itself both going forward and going backward.
So if you don't like, I can't tell from that. So do you believe in evolution or you don't? Or you just
I believe in it. I believe in it as a methodology.
It's the best hypothesis right now, would you say, or do you not even think it's the best hypothesis?
It's more functionally useful than the what am I going to do with like the metaphysical idea of creation?
Yeah, I was about to say
I can't like reduce that and apply it in a lab. Like all I can do is work with like kind of what is in my immediate reality. And that's why I'm almost able to compartmentalize like my understanding and my application of tools of science and my understanding of like religious metaphysics. Because like religion is irrational. It's not necessarily like meant to be like understood via human reasoning. And that's why like, going back to Kant, Kant's most famous book was The Critique of Pure Reason, because he concluded that ultimately humans cannot bridge the gap between the phenomenal and the nominal, or the immanent and the transcendent. We just aren't capable of exiting our meat suits. And so like that's why I'm almost kind of like pulling like
you're trying to step back and not take a decision just because the meat suit thinks it.
Conceding to impossibility of like absolute knowledge, like in the immanent.
Yeah.
And so like there's a really interesting. So have you ever heard of Gödel? Kurt Gödel.
No.
Okay, so this one, Kurt Gödel was a mathematician, and he basically came up with in like number theory and like computational theory, and he proposed something called Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And he wrote a large paper that basically proved that if your system can prove all truth claims or all true statements, then it's an incomplete system. And if your system and a complete system will always have at least one truth claim that it cannot prove. And so that means with our current methodology, with our current understanding of physics, of math, of logic, we are literally incapable of creating a comprehensive understanding of everything based on a finite set of axioms.
Yeah.
And so and so when I read Gödel, my mind was blown. And that's honestly it kind of what made me like crack from like being a functional atheist, because like if we
there's always going to be something of mystery there.
Well, it's that's part of it, right? But like also it's kind of confirming that idea of like infinite regress and self-referentiality. If we devise a complete system of the universe, and within our current tools, there will always be a true statement that we cannot prove from within the system. So that means there is something that can only be explainable from outside the system, because either our tools are insufficient or it is literally impossible to create a theory of everything that takes into account or is able to prove all true statements. And so, and like Gödel was religious, and he actually wrote a God proof, which is pretty interesting. It's pretty dense, but it's kind of cool to like just look at and think about. But and so like Gödel's theory of incompleteness, it's normally applied to it's like theoretically and philosophically applied to like AI. Like, okay, well, let's extrapolate that idea that we cannot necessarily create something that is capable of understanding the universe better than we do, because there is that thing there is that missing piece. And so if we have run up against the wall as far as like computational ability or comprehensibility, etc., like a tool that is a natural extension of our own cognition will presumably not be able to transform itself into something that is able to transcend and able to circumvent that, like Gödel's incompleteness theorem, because it is an extension of our own consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so if within our current toolbox, we cannot devise of a way around this problem, how can something that is a compilation of human knowledge and an amalgamation of human knowledge going to be able to like answer questions that we can't answer if it is just an extension of our own cognition?
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm a little dubious about AGI, because I don't necessarily think that it is possible to create something greater than ourselves, because then that functionally means man is above God, with respect to the quality and the sophisticatedness of creation.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of like another inversion of Christianity, where in man's pursuit to create an artificial intelligence that surpasses man's own ability in understanding and comprehending the universe, man is literally trying to surpass God.
Yep.
Whether you conceive of God as like an unknowable like being or cloud of unknowing, or God as evolution and nature and material reality itself, you are like functionally assuming that you can transcend the natural forces or the transcendental forces that went into our own creation, because you're saying that a thing that humans created can transcend via its own greatness,
Yeah.
its creator. And then but we're all like, when we assume this is possible, we're also saying that we are transcending the greatness of our creator. And so that's like very Gnostic. It's a lot of hubris and a lot of basically, like, man is not God, and man is attempting to be God and attempting to create something greater. Like, and I don't mean like greater like above. I mean like, how would I put this? Superior to in a fundamental way. Like a means of surpassing like our meat suits, and some like the garden. I think a way to analogize this is the Garden of Eden. It's like where the Eve picked it ate the ate from the
fruit.
good of knowledge of good and evil. Like, well, what this is doing is we're trying to obtain knowledge that is above us.
Yes.
I guess like speaking kind of an ontological language is higher than us, on a like superior plane, and we're trying to create something that can ascertain that knowledge, of which the only way to obtain that knowledge has to be superior to us ontologically in order like to surpass that incompleteness theorem, that Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And so this is just another reiteration of this like attempt to be God, like can be analogized in like the Garden of Eden. So like whether or not like that literally happened or Christianity is true, whatever, like we can just say that like myths and parables and stories, they have lasted through the millennia because they are saying something fundamental about the human experience. Whether it is literally true or it literally happened or not, they're still saying something fundamental about the human experience.
1000%.
And
Do you like Joseph Campbell?
Remind me who that is.
He writes about myth. He wrote the book The Warrior of a Thousand Faces, or The Hero of a Thousand Faces. He's like very well known.
Really familiar, but like there's
The Hero's Journey was made by Joseph Campbell. If you ever heard of The Hero's Journey, like what Star Wars.
I've heard. Yeah, okay, I've heard of it.
Yeah, no, he's one of my favorite writers. Same with like, do you like Carl Sagan?
No.
You don't like Carl Sagan? The coolest stoner astrophysicist to ever live?
So I like a lot of like the new atheists and new atheist adjacent. I think it's a lot. I never really got, even though I did identify as an atheist, I never really got into that scene, mostly because I thought it was like silly, because it's like it's proselytizing. Like you have converted like atheism into atheist evangelism, and you're trying to like spread the good word, because you believe this is like the somehow like, well, think about like, in order to make an ought claim, like, because you're saying you ought to be an atheist, that is an incoherent like philosophy in and of it's like, so you're an atheist, you're saying there is no objective morality, and you're making a like ought prescription based on like on what authority, like, because you're saying this is objectively correct, you should follow this because this is objectively. What is
at least orthodoxy is following tradition.
Like if you're an atheism predicated on Enlightenment thought, predicated on the scientific method, you are a downstream product of Kant. So like in order, like you're can't, we still haven't solved that problem. And so you're making basically like foundationless like prescriptions and like with absolutely no authority or no basis. And so I just, it was just stupid and silly, I thought.
Let's see. Don Hahn, $2. Read The Irrational Will by Boaz. Yeah, dude, you told me about that a while back. I need to check it out. Hillary talking shit. Saren's Mask, right side. Your connection is getting pretty bad. Oh yeah, she fixed it. This was a while back. Just catching up. It's good now. Shout out to Walden, man. SJ Purple Pill Pod. I think Andrew Wilson is great for the place. That guy shreds debates. Yes, man, he is pretty insane. I gotta say, people were. I don't ever want to debate him again after he kicked my ass one time. People are not against long-term relationships and having kids. They're against divorce, industrial complex, and how it ruins the lives of all in the family. 1,000%, I agree with him on that. Like, I think like people are just mad about how hard it is to get married today. Soren's Mask. The smarter you are, the better you are at rationalizing things. Gold. Yeah, that was gold. You've actually said a lot of gold tonight. You're like full of good quotes. SJ said, you read Homo Sapient? Yuval Harari, that guy is a Bon Villanova. No, I have not read that. Homo Sapient. Have you read that?
Yeah, I have.
He's asking me, but I've never. Yeah, but have you read that book before?
Well, I thought you were, when you said have you read that, I thought you were referring to me.
Yeah. I mean you, SJ.
Yeah,
Or I mean not SJ. I mean you, fucking right side of history.
Yeah, I've read most of. So he has Sapiens and he has Homo Deus. I have not read this one yet. I read Sapiens.
What does he write about? Is he writing about like biology?
Yeah, so he basically, it's kind of like an anthropological history. Like,
okay, he's more anthropology. I've
well,
never like read just anthropology
kind of,
books. I've read like evolutionary psychology books, which usually have a bunch of anthropology in them. I've never read a book that's just anthropology.
It's like multi. I guess it's interdisciplinary. It's not necessarily just anthropological because it's like there's like concepts of physics. There's like sociological like.
Would you suggest me read that one?
No, I don't. So he's a horrible person. I do not recommend.
Don't support him because he's a piece of shit.
Well, I got like I like to partake in an activity called Reading the Enemy, and so the Useless Eaters podcast is actually based off of something Yuval Harari said. Yuval Harari lovingly referred to us as useless eaters, and so
So like you like to go read like the people who you don't like to, you know,
yeah,
be a devil's advocate, be able to beat them back.
Yeah. Also because there's an extremely, I guess, superficial understanding of a lot of these things, like on the right wing in general. Like if you listen to like a lot of like the, not to slander Turning Point or anything, but like Turning Point, like, and the organizations like that, and the Daily Wire and PragerU, it's just an extension almost like of our like Prussian education model. It's very simplistic. It's very like it just tells you exactly enough to lead you in the direction they want you to ideologically lead you. They're not actually like telling you how to think politically, or giving you the tools you need to think politically, or to basically discern when someone's bullshitting you or not. They're telling you what to think. They're not leading you in a direction or like giving you counterpoints or playing steelman. They're directly making like a declarative statement about like this is the way it is, and then like making prescriptions based on like those assumptions they've made. But which is part of the problem with mainstream media in general, and why I think like the Republican Party has been so useless, is because like the Republican Party, like your average Republican would get their news from like Fox News or like Newsmax or like OAN, and like it's just garbage.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm very centered sometimes because I really hate both sides. Ask her experience dating. Oh shit. Unless you don't want to, if you don't have to. Generally not too personal. She's not unattractive and she is intelligent. I bet it's rough. It's rough for her today. I don't think so. Lauren said a spurious association at best. You found the right one there, an obnoxious, irritating. Okay, Hillary, stop talking shit. I barely roasted you today. Or authenticity. Yeah. She's speaking my language. Yeah, like for real. You actually sound just like Lauren when you're fucking talking. Cause I talk like she's in all of our spaces all the time, so that's funny. Give me a fucking break. For fuck's sake. Damn, Hillary, y'all just going ham back and forth, huh? Walden says science is belief based. Yes. More like observation based. Yeah, I guess
Well, yeah,
because based off your
it's an
observation.
observation being made from your meat suit.
Yeah. From
And
our
the fact
flawed
that
meat
they- yeah,
suit.
mm.
Soren, sometimes you can tell someone is smarter. This is one of those times. She's smarter than me. 1,000%, dude. She's kicking my ass too. I would never want to fucking debate this girl. She make me look really stupid real quick. And I'm like 10, almost 10 years older than her, and she's still making me look stupid. RPO Studios, and that's dope. Learn and grow. Damn, Lori and Hillary were going back and forth on the Twitter feed. Holy shit. We never have people chatting on Twitter. PPP. What's up, Michael Mitro? #1 mod on YouTube. Reference. What are they even talking about? What's up, Michael, dude? What, Walden, why did you send that? I saw that you just sent that. I was like, what is he talking about? But no, so just to like kind of close it up, do you have anything that you would like people to kind of know about? Or here, wait, he just said something else. Sorry, rough dating statistically being higher IQ. Is that true? Is it rough for dating if you're a higher IQ?
I think probably only if you are like hypergamous. I'm not really hypergamous. So
You're opting for your long-term mating strategy.
well, no, because that would be hypergamy, wouldn't I? Like I've
No, well, I mean, yeah, technically it would be because you're looking for a beta bucks, but no, not really. Like you can find a guy. It's more just looking for a long-term guy versus a short-term guy. Like if you're opting for your short-term strategy, then you're kind of just fucking around. I feel like if you're opting for your long-term strategy, you're like, I'm just waiting for the right guy.
Yeah, well, I've never been into I've never done short-term or casual like sex or like relationships just because it was silly.
Probably, yeah. I feel like if you're higher IQ, it's kind of easier to step back and be like, all right, these people are fucking idiots out here. Like, this is crazy. I need to get an IQ test. I'd probably actually be average around like 100 or something. Maybe I'm not as stupid as I think I am. We got to do.
I would think. I assume you'd be above average. Because like, but maybe I don't know. What does average look like? I don't know.
I don't really care about IQ. Like all I care about is how
Yeah.
like competency. Like are you? And I think that's what women also care about too. If you're looking at the dating marketplace, like I've never had a trouble dating, and it's not because I'm smart. It's because I'm competitive. I get shit done. I'm competent. Like I'm just not an idiot. Like I actually think it's easier dating now than ever. It's just you know how it is. There's so many people online and on video games and shit. It's kind of fucked up. Pornography and shit. We gotta do a 1v1 sometime. Purple Pill. I'm down, bro. Please DM me on X or on Instagram, whatever. Like I need to practice. So I would love to do something. Like she likely couldn't date someone 90 IQ without losing her mind. I bet, man, that would be fucking hard as hell to date a fucking idiot whenever you like run laps on their ass all the time. Do you have any questions for me? Any last minute stuff that you want to say before we go?
Well, I think it'd be interesting. Like, what is the like? What do you think you're accomplishing or are attempting to accomplish with, I guess, having these conversations or having, just on the internet? Like, what is like? Is it for the purpose like fostering almost like a community or like teaching people, or is it like oriented towards like funneling people in a certain direction? Like, and do you think that you've been able to do that like over the last year and a half? Like what has been your experience for like the growth of your podcast, and like what if your goals or like your ideas about what you were doing have shifted over time?
Oh man, good question. It's evolved a lot. When I started this, it was because I joined the Fresh and Fit Dallas Discord, and I would debate these kids in there all the time that were big Fresh and Fit fans, and I went and met them in real life and hung out with them. I showed them like the type of guy that I was and the girlfriend that I had, and said, proved that I wasn't just some fake guy on the internet, saying all this stuff about my life. And they respected me. And next thing you know, I kind of felt like I was building up a whole theory of like relationships. Like, and I hated the red pill because they're so about spinning plates and just running game and just all this really stupid shit. I'm really big about pre-selection, being friends with women, utilizing mate choice copying. I just actually bought the domain matechoicecopying.com because I'm going to be doing a blog for that. Because it's just the subject I'm obsessed with. I was raised with 4 sisters. I got a mom and a stepmom. I had nothing but friends that were all girls. I've lived with a bunch of girls that were friends. I've lived with girlfriends, multiple. So I'm just kind of more experienced than most guys. I've spent a lot of time with women, way more than the average dude. All my best friends are girls. So it's just like, I really just felt like it was I don't know, like my whole life of being around women so much kind of led up to this point of I need to teach men to do this so their lives can be better. Because I've watched so many guys suffer, and I've helped a few guys. I'm not going to sit here and say I've helped, tons of guys. I haven't, maybe just like a couple dozen. But when I first started doing it, I thought that when I first started doing my podcast, it was a regular panel show. I was trying to blow up like everybody else, have the girls saying stupid shit. But my big thing was like, I was always like, no, I want the women to change though. The big thing that I talk about is like, if women keep their legs closed and men become better, that's how we fix everything. Like, it's just those two simple things. Just women stop sleeping around, men need to be better guys, and that's it. And like everything kind of start getting better. And I started helping a lot of women. Some women were actually learning a lot. They were DMing me. I was helping them with their dates, with guys they were talking to. Like, it was really helpful for the girls for a while, but it just wasn't profitable. Nobody gives a shit about like helping the women or like trying to play devil's advocate and kind of play both sides of the red pill shit. It's either you're like whamming bad and like all man, or you're just not a part of the crew. Like, I'm literally blocked by every one of the red pill guys on X because I go out their throats constantly. I just got my 12th gym badge the other week off of my last one. But yeah, so I'm gonna, like, my whole goal is to just attack the red pillars until they learn that they're not even, beat them over the head with their own red pill stick, because I consider myself more red pill than them. I know more about evolutionary psychology than them. I want everybody to read about evolutionary psychology. I think it's a great thing to learn about. All these things, like all these things about nature. Actually, Andrew Wilson taught me a word. He DM'd me and he said I need to use it more. He said, oh yeah, ontological nature. I need to use that word more. But yeah, I'll just talk about the ontological nature of humans, and really try that's my main goal, is really teach mate choice copying, really teach real evolutionary psychology, constantly push back on the red pill guys until I can get them to realize that they're all a bunch of fucking retards and they're just using pickup and game and all this stuff that's not going to get them genuine desire, is not going to get them a good relationship. And really just bring people together. Like, I'm very Christian still at heart, and I really believe in community, and I really believe in socializing. Like, the thing that I'm going to be dropping soon, it's literally just like 6 or 7 hobbies, 6 or 7 jobs, and 6 or 7 side gigs that you can have that puts you around a bunch of women as a guy. And just because you have to be calibrated, like, you have to be around more people every day, or you're not going to learn how to read facial movements. You're not going to be able to understand social cues. Like, they have to get calibrated. So that's why I try to help the guys with, even women. I'm probably going to drop a course for women, because mostly it's actually women that follow me, and I'll probably be doing one that's the same for them. Because the big thing is, like, for guys, they got to go to female dominated environments, and women need to go to male dominated environments. And that's where you can kind of get more options and more accessibility to find a better mate in the real world. I'm super against online dating. Like, so against online dating. I hate it. I never did it. I think it's like it literally causes all the problems that we have today. So I'm super, but that's the biggest thing, is basically trying to return everybody back to nature, back to reality, which I think that is kind of goes hand in hand with the Bible and kind of goes hand in hand with God. I'm trying to actually connect that right now with Andrew Wilson. I'm trying to find a way where we can go at the red pillars and show them that red pill actually aligns pretty close with religion. But that's it, really. I mean, purple pill, the reason why it's called this is because my favorite YouTuber, he said being purple pill is being a red pillar in a relationship, and I always got made fun of for being a relationship guy. So yeah, I'm purple pill. It's kind of a bad name because everybody roasts me for it, but I'll take it.
Awesome. But yeah, I think that's obviously being chronically or terminally online is part of the problem, because like a lot of people like would meet people through like mutual hobbies and mutual interests, and so there's
Mutual
already
friends, social circle.
and so like, but now like nobody has hobbies outside of like being a
Internet.
degenerate, being on the internet.
Yeah.
And there's a variety of ways in which one can be a degenerate. So,
Anime.
yeah.
See, I'm really against anime too, honestly. I don't know if you're an anime fan, but I fucking hate anime. I think it
No,
destroys
no,
men.
it's
It's a degenerate shit, I'm telling you.
it's very um but like people aren't good at things anymore. Like they don't find value in like being good at a niche skill. And like that is like something that is one aspect of like I guess conversational topic, or one aspect of like I guess some way to impress somebody, like potentially is
Oh
like,
yeah. It's
well,
like I do this
'cause
hobby.
it's a proxy for competence. Like oh, I do this thing on the side for fun, and I'm good at it. Like and so
Green flag. Green flag right there. Yeah, it's just you just made it so simple. It's just competency. You're just proving competency.
well, because like a lot of these like things that occur like between like a dynamic on a first date, for example, like you're looking for indicators that you can use to extrapolate about the character of a person, that like and try to figure out like if they're putting on a front like what they actually are like. And so like the best way to do that is use approximation, use proxies, which are like, does this person have a lot of friends? Like does this person I guess have a good relationship with his parents? Does he have interests or hobbies that are outside of like dating?
Being
That's a
obsessed
big
with
one.
you.
Yeah, exactly. I think if people don't have hobbies or they don't have outside interests, it's biggest red flag, because it's like then you're probably a hyper obsessive person. 1, 2, or you're a degenerate.
Yeah.
So,
And that's another
yeah.
reason why I teach the hobby thing, is because it's so attractive when a guy just even has a hobby. I played tournament paintball, and like it was so that the years that I was like a tournament paintball player, it was never easier to get girls, and it was just because like I was doing something and it was kind of cool it wasn't like some lame thing, it wasn't like crocheting.
Well, and that's another thing. And that's like for doing the hobby for the sake of liking doing the hobby is important. Like because it's obvious if you're like
Doing it for just the girls.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I was doing it just for the girls. It's always a benefit. Anything a guy ever does, he better not be doing it just for the bitches. Like you should always do it for yourself,
People
man.
like can normally tell, like in the
Oh yeah.
like because like normally your level like because obviously if you're doing something instrumentally, then you're not going to know a lot about that. You're going to know the superficial aspects of that thing. You're going to have a workable knowledge, but like normally if you're passionate about something, you're going to know like the ins and outs, the everything you can about that thing. And so when it's obvious when you're using something instrumental, like as a tactic of manipulation almost, when like you either are not good at it, you don't know a lot about it, or you seem to only like superficially care about it, and like it's clearly a front. And so that's like then that's discernible. Like people pick up on those things like subliminally, like it's not necessarily even a conscious process, but they're like like there's like some inconsistencies, I'm not necessarily sure, but like they like register that.
It's like when somebody uses a fallacy, you kind of get this weird feeling in your stomach. Like that just doesn't. I feel like somebody's trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you're trying to like sell me something.
Yeah, and like you can't necessarily like you perceptually know that it like that doesn't. I know that doesn't logically flow, but I can't exactly explain to you how.
I can't point how you did it. Yeah.
But like you still have like either intuited or like perceive that something is off, even though like you can't quite describe what is off. And that is going to inform, and if that keeps happening, if a similar event keeps happening, is like that is going to like increase the skepticism or increase mistrust and like putting distance between, because people don't like to feel like someone is making the conscious decision to lie to their face or like deceive them, because that's a bad proxy. Like if you are lying about something so superficial as like what you like to do like in your free time, then what else are you going to lie about? And so And
I hope none of these guys who take my advice ever get a hobby just to fucking use it for the girl thing. I mean, like, yeah, they kind of are starting it because of that, but I really hope they get into the hobby because they love
well,
it.
you should do it because you need to get off the internet because the internet isn't healthy, and that includes me. I need to get
Yeah.
off the
So
internet.
yeah, do you have any hobbies? Like what do you do? Do you
I
go do
read
anything?
a lot. Well, I'm taking 20. I'm in 2 graduate programs right now. I'm a 3rd-year law student, and I'm getting a master biomedical engineering because I'm going to be a patent prosecutor. So you need a solid STEM background in order to be a patent prosecutor. So
You know what's
especially
funny is my friends told me because of AI, patent is going to be one of the few things that's profitable in the future because it's always like obviously you can't have AI just doing patent stuff because there's always new patents coming through. Like it's always new. But that's like one of the industries that's going to stay making a lot of money.
well, and also there's some time before AI takes over patents because of the problem of the unlicensed practice of law. That has not been hashed out yet in litigation. So that's going to take probably a good decade at least to work its way through the courts. Whether an attorney who uses an LLM for assistance on, let's say, a motion or a brief, if they are basically using a helper that would be participating in the unlicensed practice of law, because obviously AI is not barred does not have a licensed practice law, and so that could potentially open that attorney up for medical malpractice suits, because if anybody loses, if they lose their case and you had used AI to help construct your argument,
Oh, you're screwed.
yeah.
So screwed.
And so yeah.
But so
Yeah.
like even when you finish school, do you have any plans to have hobbies outside of school? Like I know right now you can't really have a hobby, but do you want to do something?
Well, I mean, I've played sports my entire life. I ride horses. I have a couple side hustles. I sell rare plants, and I sell diamonds.
Do you mean rare plants as in like cactus or plants?
Variegated plants and nepenthes.
I have a lot of friends who do like the cactus game, so that's how I kind of know. But I actually I'm very big for hydroponic. Like I worked for a bunch of big businesses when it came to doing hydroponic vegetables and stuff. So I know a lot about the growing industry. What are you? So what are you growing?
I'm growing nepenthes, philodendron, monstera.
Are those all just? Are they all just show plants? Like what are they?
Yeah, they're all so nepenthes are pitcher plants. And I have both lowland and highland species, and the highland ones are super picky, and you have to keep them in basically a chamber that is 90% at 90% humidity, and at 80
Yeah,
degrees.
misters going all day or what?
So I have a little almost
dome over
hydroponics thing with a green dome, and I put it on a heat mat, and I don't even run it. I just put water in the bottom, put it on a heat mat.
Yeah, and it'll just stay humid. It'll humidify itself.
Yeah.
And so you just sit there and clone and just make a shit ton of them and then sell them online.
Currently, they are taking up my entire living room, and I live with my sister, so she has not been pleased.
So you just do you just use those little T5 lights to grow them, or
I have I have a 400-watt 4-foot Viper Spectra set up on PVC.
Wow. Wait, 400-watt? Did you LED or Meta Halide? What?
LED, yeah.
LED. Okay.
Yeah, it's 4 foot, and so I made a stand using PVC pipes I got from Home Depot.
Good. Yeah, that's how you should do it. It's a cheap way. Yeah. So how much did you, or what spectrum is the light on it? Is a blue LED spectrum?
No, it is.
More red.
It's looking at it, looks like yellowish white. It's multi-spectrum. So
yeah, usually those LEDs got a bunch, but they're mainlined towards a certain spectrum. Because where do those plants come from? Where are they native?
A bunch
you
of
don't
places,
know.
But so philodendron is native to Central and South America, so is monstera. But nepenthes are native to the Philippines and Borneo and Indonesia.
And these are popular house plants.
So the violet. So
where they all hallucinogenic, and you just don't want to tell me? I'm just kidding.
No. Where the money is in the variegation. So all of my philodendron monstera, my my anthuriums aren't variegated, but the money's in the variegations, like the mutations, like the different colors, and you cannot reproduce those via seeds because they're like they're chimeric, and so you just propagate them over and over and over again, and like so
you just have to keep cloning. Like, so basically, when you get one that does that, you just got to clone the fuck out of it.
Yeah, well, I buy them already variegated. So
Okay, yeah. And I'm guessing they cost more when they're like that.
Like we're talking like.
Yeah, some of my friends with the cactus game, they be selling them for like $1,000 a piece and shit. It's crazy.
So I'd say the average value of my plants, I would say is probably $300 a piece. But I have some that go like are worth up and over $1,000.
Wow.
But I'm really like for the last year and a half, I've just been working on like building up like my inventory. Like so I haven't been selling a lot.
You're trying to scale.
Yeah, where the money is on my like side hustles when I sell diamonds. So I've been doing that for about 3 years now.
Do you order? So this is so crazy. I actually had a jewelry business too. So do you order direct from India, or do you have a plug right here or in your main city?
So I have a wholesaler for both like mine and lab diamonds, and then I have a wholesaler for settings, and I also like go and look on the secondhand market. And how I make money is
you can get them so cheap from India.
Yeah. I honestly, it makes me feel kind of bad.
Yeah, if people really knew about like the 300% markup, like they get hit on when jewelry, they would fucking hate you. Yeah.
Like my best turnover was I put like because I got a designer. It was like branded like Takori, and like I put $4,000 in this ring between the diamond and the setting. And I sold it for $18,000.
Yeah, that's crazy. No, I would only concentrate on engagement rings and stuff. So yeah, it's a great market if you get in contact with some wedding planners and stuff, and you don't even have to have a business run if you do it correctly.
Well, all I do is sell in the secondhand market. So like when I'm like putting together a ring, I will just like spot check how much that like
on eBay. Are you talking like eBay?
Well, so there's a website called Looped. I sell a lot on Poshmark, and I sell some on Etsy. I've avoided eBay because whenever I tried to sell,
over so fast.
The scammers are insane.
If I knew a good online source, I probably would have kept doing it. But I got scammed on eBay, and it was just like, yeah, never touching this shit again.
Yeah,
but yeah, you can definitely just sell wholesale, like kind of just make like a small lick all day long online, and just like you can't beat people over the head like if it's a local person, but you can still.
I netted like $4 or $5 in flipping just like silver rings.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I bought like $1,500 worth of like just like silver, like used silver rings, and it took me. I probably spent over 100 hours sitting there polishing. My fingers were like I think I definitely have like arthritis in my pinkies now, but just because it's so hard to get into the crevices. But so I won't do that again.
Do you know how to code or anything? Have you ever made websites or anything like that?
I have made websites, but I mean, I code my biomedical engineering program, but mostly that's in like biomedical like applications. Like we're using MATLAB, like Cybe, and like creating
things that are based around security.
Well, it's based around like, for example, writing a code that will interpret or be able to section off the parts of a like histology image from like cell cultures. Like we have a microscope and you take a picture, and so you can write a program that automatically counts the number of cells or counts the number of nuclei in each cell. And crazy. So that's kind of like the biomedical applications that we are taught to do, or like just writing like programs that like automatically. Well, so we were taught to do like convolutional neural networks with respect to like just like recognizing like when a cell is in a certain type of state, whether it's in like M1 phase or like whether X is occurring in the cell, and you can do that via like convolutional neural networks. But obviously, it's difficult because you have to like go to the lab and you have to use their GPUs, and it takes hours and hours and hours to like run a couple like ethics, whatever. But
coding's coding. It's just a horrible way of doing it. It sounds like.
Yeah, and well, it's kind of because like universities tend to be behind technological advancement. Like a lot of the stuff we're doing, like we're doing things manually, and and we're like 5 years behind like the way the industry is doing them. And like now, like we're doing all this, like we were taught to do how to do like convolve an image and like use a kernel to like create a mask and count the number of cell nuclei, when there's programs that automatically do this. And so they wanted to teach us like, okay, well, like those programs are black box, we want to teach you how to write it yourself so you actually know what's happening, you know, like what math is occurring behind the scenes. Well, now you can just like go on ChatGPT and do it in 5 minutes. And like but there's still, and so it's kind of like, it almost feels like stupid. I'm really just here for the piece of paper, or papers plural, but I wouldn't, realistically, I could probably like 1 year of law school as opposed to 3 would be fine, and like with an apprenticeship afterwards. Like law school should not be 3 years. Like most school is redundant and useless and an absolute racket. And the only reason I'm doing it is because I need the stupid pieces of paper. But I get it's a gatekeeping mechanism, because like a lot of the medical organizations will actually lobby to restrict, like for example, in medical school, like they'll restrict residency spots because they want to create that like supply demand imbalance. So these doctors will like in these medical orgs go and lobby Congress, and they're like, do not make more residency positions, even though we're in a doctor shortage, because the doctors want leverage. And they also like basically team up with like hedge funds like BlackRock, and they lobby Congress, and they're like, do not open more residency slots. We want NPs because we can pay NPs half the amount of, like we can pay doctors, and we can build insurance the same. And so it's like this with like all like the people inside the industry are lobbying and like throwing money around to try to necessitate their own existence.
They're just fucking trying to make a profit.
Yeah.
Trying to make crazy profit. Lauren said pickleball. Yeah, guys, go play pickleball, man. I got a cousin who's crazy about pickleball right now. Our POC is you beat them over the head with the red pill stick, man. Yeah, this one gonna be fun. Yeah, if you're red pill, bro, it's definitely gonna be fun. I hope you've read your evolutionary psychology. Listen, I will now and forever be a Bleach fan. Okay, all right, bro. Go watch your fucking.
Is Bleach an anime, or is
yeah, it's definitely.
Okay, I thought it was like, is he implying that he should drink Bleach? I can't.
No. I hope nobody talks that bad in my chat. Besides, anime is helpful in learning Japanese. Okay, bro. The only dude, that Japanese. Have you seen that new Godzilla movie?
He crochets.
Oh, he does. Is that what he said? Listen, okay. I feel attacked. Crocheting is a glorious hobby. What, dude? Actually, like my girl crochets and knits, and lately I've been telling her like we need to like start going to some Pokemon conventions with like, because I got like a like she made me a Charizard, and I was like, dude, we gotta make like yeah. But I was like, we gotta make a bunch of these and go to like Pokemon or like card conventions and like have a booth, and people pay like $200-300 for that shit.
Yeah, dang.
But she's actually going to nursing school right now, so she's really fucking busy and she can't crochet. So I was like, I guess I gotta fucking learn to do it. Adam, how have you not graduated if you did it twice already? She didn't. Did you say you did it twice already? No, she's trying to finish 2 at the same time.
Yeah, I'm doing 2 degrees. My undergrad's in biochemistry, and I'm doing a concurrent degree program. So I'm doing a JD and a master biomedical engineering. Which basically means I'm doing both in 3 years, which basically means I've been taking 22 credit hours a semester for the last 4 semesters. So it's been absolutely.
You got 140 IQ. It's no big deal. You got it. It's not that bad. Soren, it's like she's talking another language. I can't understand anything, but she does sound nice. Plants. Who knew? Yeah. She didn't bring any dressing for all the word salad. It is. I mean, if you don't got your vocabulary down, you're gonna have a hard time listening to her. Yes, she did. Why don't you try some of your alpha satire on her? Oh yeah. Of course, I'm an alpha male. I don't touch my dick when I go pee. That's fucking gay. I came up with a bunch of these yesterday, and I was like, I'm gonna make like a whole video series of like calling myself out. I actually call myself a beta.
What's it called? It's called of course I'm a dink or whatever.
Yeah, it's like that TikTok series that they're doing right now. Yeah, I want to do it, but for alpha male. I actually joke and call myself a beta male all the time, like because I think if you choose relationships, like you're choosing to settle down, like that's pretty beta. Like, I'm cool with that though. But and I'm really like something that's like a take that everybody kind of hates me online for is I'm kind of I think marriage is only for women. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's a good thing. Like, I think marriage is great for society as a whole. But I think like if you really dive deep to where it came from and why we use it and just the religious points of it all, like it's just to control man. Because if you don't control man, like we're kind of psychopaths and we do some really crazy shit.
I have contention with that for like multiple for like historiographic reasons, and also like just from like I guess the religious perspective, but also from like evolutionary reasons. Like, but and like going back to the adaptiveness argument, like the like being an apex predator in so many environments requires a high level of both
Teamwork.
sociological adaptability.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to be like resilient and like highly adaptable. And part of how humans have done this, I can't remember who, like what psychologist was talking about that. I was listening to a podcast, but basically what was said was humans reset, like they almost like recalibrate whenever something good happens, that they've been wanting something good to happen forever, and then it finally happens and their happiness resets, which is why like we're prone to hedonism, because it's like, oh, like, so even when the best thing
you want more, yeah, it's the stepping stone. Yeah.
And but we do the same thing, like, well, it's also beneficial with respect to bad conditions, because the worst thing ever can happen to us and we'll like, oh, that's horrible, and then it will reset, like we'll recalibrate at that. Like, that's why prosperity, like for example, like prosperity and happiness and like wealth is totally they're totally relative concepts, because in order to be like wealthy, you have to be, that has to necessarily exist in a binary with something that like someone who's not wealthy. And so like otherwise the concept of wealthy would not be extant, because you cannot that's an inherently relative term. And so like a lot of our ideas of what like a superior way of doing things, or when we make like claims of better or ought, typically that's juxtaposed and like only possible based on the fact that there is something that is the equal but opposite, but we consider to be the worst opposite, like for like rich, poor, like short, tall, like ugly, pretty. Like there is no pretty if there is no ugly. There is no like tall, there is no short. Like those are all relative to each other.
No, I get it. Soren, my only problem with the right side is that the camera setup leaves way too much headroom. Just 2 degrees lower orientation would be a huge improvement. He's saying fix your camera.
Yeah.
Do you have it set up like that on purpose so people can't see under like?
No. What do I? Is it like this?
Yeah, he just wanted you to put it down a little bit. I guess so you're more centered in it.
It was just like that.
It's just the laptop camera, bro. What's next? I think that's everything. No, I really appreciate this conversation. It was nice talking to somebody that I can learn from, because sometimes it feels like a teaching math, or like you're just teaching people sometimes. So it's nice where I got to kind of sit back this time and just like learn like a bunch of fucking new shit. A lot of it is so nuanced and so deep, like what you look into and like kind of what interests you, I guess. I like the nuance and everything like that, but I have this saying that I always say, it might just be one of my 80 IQ quotes, but I feel like you don't know something well enough if you can't explain it simply. So like my whole thing is like I'm trying to get really good at saying super deep topics, but in the most simple way possible, and just so I can reach these retards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, the problem, I think this is part of like, so this is kind of what they did with like depression. They had like ulterior motives, but like you are going to have a limit, like I guess there's going to be a limit of comprehensibility of certain complex abstractions. So if you are discussing abstractions within abstractions, like
that gets deep.
it gets confusing, like because you're talking about like things that aren't literally like
you can't even put words to it sometimes. Yeah.
And so for like when talking about someone like Hegel, where like I have a Hegel dictionary, and I'm not like this person like well, and they're trying to explain like the terms Hegel uses, like, and define them, And I'm not kidding. Some of these definitions, like it's simplifying his concepts, they are a half a page long. And so that's why it's kind of hard to simplify some of these like hyper abstract and hyper like contingent like ideas, because they're all built on abstractions on abstractions on abstractions.
That's
And
crazy.
so it's hard to do it without using the technical terminology, because if you don't use the technical terminology, or you don't try to like
You're not portraying
work
it
around
correctly.
well, you can explain it correctly, but it'd be a lot more verbose. Because then I'd have to go, every time I said dialectic, I'd have to explain what the dialectic is. And I might have should have explained that, but it's hard to understand. Like, so it's just like the transcending opposites. I kind of did explain it with the synthesis, like where you have like the acceleration contradictions and the transcension above opposites. But it's way more complex than that. And sometimes, like when you're trying to simplify something and you've cut out what you've thought were ancillary details, later on when you're explaining something contingent on like the dialectic, for example, you will have you'll need to go back and re-explain something you left out, and like for simplicity purposes. But like, and so that's why it's hard with these types of like concepts that like are highly abstract and almost highly intentionally convoluted by the people writing them. It is for the purpose of them not being easily translatable.
And also just used in the wrong ways because of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of
Well, and
sense.
it's also on purpose. Like, 'cause then you can like infinitely reinterpret and redefine and like move the goalpost, which is what is constantly happening. So
Yeah, have you found through Twitter a lot of people that you would consider like at your level of intellect, like y'all are able to have very, intense conversations over these type of issues, or
yeah.
like do you think most people on Twitter are kind of stupid, or what do you think?
I mean, I think Twitter is representative of
The world.
of the general population, but there's a bunch of smart people on Twitter. I mean,
like who
every
you
once in a
even
while-
look up to and you like to try to debate with or talk with a lot?
I don't necessarily like debate with. So,
Yeah, I don't want to use the term debate. I always use that term way too much, but I'm just kind of mean
like
disgust.
I get like kind of like have a like Socratic like dialogue with. I get like sure like
Because
I
you're
mean, I
kind of
do
just
that-
stating what is. It's not like you can kind of prove to the other what you like. Like you're not trying to change each other's opinion. You're more trying to just
like posing a
talk
steel
about
man and saying like I like your idea, like, but what about this contingency? Like, does it hold up in this like contingent hypothetical or whatever? But there's tons of smart people like, and a lot of the accounts I like are just basically posting like just different studies and interpreting data. Because
Yeah, I know. That's what I like about what you do is when you just interpret the data and you talk about what you think about it. It's pretty nice, actually.
But the conflict is right. A lot of that stuff that has a more niche audience. A lot of people see a abstract of a paper and they just keep scrolling. People like the stupid like shit posts and the videos. That's what gets attention. That's what gets you clicks. And it's
I'm just a monkey man. That's what I do. I just attack people all day long.
It's like the amount of time like you put into a post is like inversely correlated with how much people like that post.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and do you think it's a problem that how easy it is to put out like the amount of energy it takes to put out misinformation and for it to spread? It, like the amount of power it takes for you to disassemble that misinformation and beat it back is like way more energy. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's part of like the function. That's part of like why the algorithm is so like polarizing and like bifurcating. Is like the most outrageous and probably incorrect and inaccurate interpretation of a study or a series of events is going to be what grabs people's attention because it's outrageous and it's like the shock values there. And so that take is what spreads, not necessarily the accurate measured interpretation of events. It's the totally hyperbolic, like exaggerated shitpost version.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of algorithmically driven social media. It's a positive feedback loop. The more the more shitpost that gets attention, the more the shitpost spreads. Yeah. And then the more that drowns out the actually measured takes.
Yeah. Like, and I didn't even want to, like, this whole year you're asking like how it was. I was never really niched down. Like, I kind of niched down, I guess, with the panel show, but I've kind of been like, I talk about money, I talk about relationships, I talk about too many niches where like you're kind of supposed to only talk about one thing to
Yeah.
grow because that's how the algorithm helps you. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now with like, I'm calling it status hackers, like my new thing that I'm going to do. And like, I'm going to focus on teaching how to get status through a peer group, like through a social group of women, because that's the only way I can find people who are even interested in the same type of shit as me. It feels like I have such a broad mind towards shit. You have to like choose a niche. I don't want to. It's like I have to. Like, it's not a choice.
Yeah, which is why I've kind of like I've kind of like just stopped caring about growth necessarily, just because. I mean,
You're a girl. You grow no matter what you do, man.
well, I would everyone like I was anon until like a week ago. Like
yeah, I know.
everyone,
Yeah.
even though despite my profile picture saying adult human female,
Yeah.
people kept referring to me as he.
Yeah, it is.
And
It is pretty cool that like you grew with the Facebook or with the faceless profile. So that is pretty dope.
And it got a point where like I was like, it almost felt like I didn't feel obliged to dox, but it almost felt like cowardly. I'm like, oh, I'm hiding behind anon. Like, why don't I put like my money where I'm actually wanting to initiate change. I actually want to like model behavior. I should put my money where my mouth is, and I should be air quote brave and like not be afraid to associate my opinions with my face.
Well, the internet's dangerous though. Like I think that the women are very I don't know. The internet's dangerous for a woman, so you need to be
Which
careful.
is why I'm trying to minimize the like hyper specificness of the biographical information I share. But whatever. I mean, what can you do?
Yeah. No, I respect it, and I can't say it enough. Thank you for letting me be. Am I your first interview?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I got to be the first
Actually,
interview.
Benjamin Boyce was but I did that one anonymous.
Yeah. No, I'm the first face interview of the right side of history. So whenever you're famous one day or something, and you start writing all these books and you change the world, they're gonna be able to look at me and be like, "That was the first ever face interview with her." I'm serious. I'm gonna go viral just because of that one day. I really appreciate you for coming on though, for real.
Let's lower the expectations.
You're not gonna try to take over the world. You don't have like that. You don't have that goal.
I just want to do what I do, and if it ends up being useful or like being a catalyst for something, then so be it. But a lot of it's like I just enjoy doing it. I enjoy reading. I enjoy talking about ideas, and so like part of it's selfish, like it's self-interested, like in like talking about like it's because I like doing it. But the other part of it is like things have gotten so crazy where like it almost feels like you have an obligation in order like to like if you disagree with what's going on and the rate at which it's going, it almost feels like you have like a moral obligation to, hey, I don't like this, stop.
It feels deterministic almost, as if it's meant to be that you're supposed to go do this thing.
Well, right, because there's like because it's so viscerally, especially if you're at university, it's so viscerally in your face constantly. You cannot escape it, and so that's like it's like you're constantly put in that position where you're like pondering like what your relationship is with this stuff and like how you are going to react to it and whether you're going to like conform and just like shut up and keep your head down or like I guess rage against the dying of the light. And but
do you see yourself if you did start blowing up? Because I want you to know, you being authentic in yourself, like, because that's what you said you're going to do. You're just going to be yourself. That's actually what's higher likelihood to push you out there even more, because people love authenticity. So by you doing, what you're already doing, I promise you're going to grow, and you're probably going to do really good one day at this stuff because you're already doing everything correctly. You're being yourself, and that's all that matters.
I think I made like some of the feminist gender criticals mad. I posted this like TikTok. It was just like a shit post, but it was this lady who looked like she had like silicone like injections, like it looked so goofy in her butt, like, and so I made a comment like, I'm surprised that it's legal for her not to have flashing lights and a sign that says wide load.
You just got to start doing more comedy stuff.
And people got so mad at me. And I called them like, you guys have no problem when I mock troons for their bad plastic surgery, but suddenly you have a problem when like I'm mocking like someone that's like not your sworn enemy. Like, if you have a problem with me, that means you have a problem with consistency, period. Because I'm like, I try to be as consistent as possible.
Yeah, if you're gonna, I mean, that's all you got to do to really also grow is just be consistent. To be 100% fair, right side, most people feel safer to say he to people over in regards to whatever
Fair enough.
avatars are bringing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing. Yeah, I definitely just say he to everybody. It was funny though because the first time I heard your voice, like I swear, you did sound like a little like actually this is how it is, like actually because of your retainer. That shit was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
RIP. I guess, but also too, like I don't know, like what it is about like spaces, the audio, with the way the audio, like and my voice, like
Yeah,
like,
blame the spaces,
Well,
blame the space.
people like I've never been known for having a lisp. I don't have a lisp, and then suddenly everyone's accusing me of having a lisp in spaces, and I'm like, I've never had a lisp.
You kind of do, but yeah, I want you, and yeah, please join our spaces more often. I'm always in there with Lauren and stuff. I would love for you to join because we're trying to do them more often. So yeah, it'd be dope if you came and hung out with all of our, because I know like you're part of like it's weird how X works. There's like these little fucking
it's
groups.
like high school. It's like where there's
It is. It's just like high school. It's just like high school. There's
Yeah.
different cliques. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I've been. That's why I've
And
been
then
comparing it to.
there's like infighting, and then like the group
Yeah.
breaks up. It's so stupid.
Oh yeah, and then there's like the pro-capitalists and like the
Yeah.
pro-commies. It's like, dude, it's so fucking funny. And then there's the racial fucking divides. There's it is definitely cool again. That's why I think I love it so much. Is because it's like I'm back in high school again.
Well, it's also highly entertaining because it's like there's constantly like someone like slinging shit at somebody else. And
Oh yeah. I love it. No, I really hope if you ever want to do another one of these, I want to ask you, you know, after this, or if you could, please send me your favorite like 5 to 10 books. I'm gonna probably check out a few of them, and I would love to bring you back on in the future if you want to, and like go over one of those books or something.
Yeah,
That's something that I like to do is review books with people. So I would love to be able to
stacks and
go over that.
stacks. So
Oh, and as far as like what I'm trying to do, you know, because like I gave you like my whole thing. Do you have any advice for how I can do what I want to do better? Because I gave you my whole spiel about what I'm trying to do.
I think what I think has been useful to me in trying to like approach these like highly emotional topics that were like, because like you can't like the
You trigger somebody, they stop listening.
Out of your meat suit, like whether like as objective as you try to be, like you are still have an emotional and visceral reaction because you actually occupied these identities. But like if you kind of like pause, like okay, like evaluate that like initial like response, and you're like, what why am I being driven towards this response? Like what is this accomplishing? Like and then kind of like, okay, I am being driven dialectically. Like I am like my emotions and the emotions of the opposition are being played off each other. Like there's nothing necessarily rational about this. It's just heuristics versus heuristics, and then bickering about like who's like bullshit like garbage sociology study trumps the other person's bullshit garbage sociology. Like because that's what it becomes like shit slinging, where like people are like, oh well, I have this study, and like okay.
Especially with the feminists, because they're like, well, 1% of men are psychopaths. It's like, well, 1% of women kill their babies. You know?
Like, it becomes so it gets so dumb so fast because then it's obviously like when you're using those as like clubs, you're not using them to like converge and come to mutual understanding of truth. You're using them to clobber your enemy to death. So I'm
usually pretty good about not see. I always try to find where we're like the same. Like I'm pretty good at trying, especially when I argue with people that disagree with me, like women. It's just like, well, I got good enough sales skills to figure out where we actually agree on something, you know, and then that's where you can find hope. Or is where you agree on it.
When I present a study that like is specifically kind of like framing one identity in this way, I try to counterbalance it by also like
saying the other side.
Yeah. Like because
and that's what I do that too. I do exactly what you just said.
If you don't, then like you're immediately like, because people are used to being like
just one-sided. Like
assuming that if one identity is mentioned, you're automatically approaching that in bad faith.
1,000%. And that's literally all the comments on X. Like I say something in a reply, and they're like, "You're an incel virgin." It's like, I live with my girlfriend. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's really weird. Like if you say this, you're just automatically on this side. And then like I said, it's crazy. I agree.
It's just like a bunch of wounded narcissists lashing out. Like it's at the end of the day, because like they're not actually presenting an argument. They're just like shit slinging, and they're just projecting. And so it's almost comical if you like when you get those comments and you look at them and you're like
it is funny.
Like this person or she responded to with this. Like it's because it's almost like it's so sad that it's almost funny. Like you almost have to laugh.
Yeah, I'm just trying to create a new meme for every reply I get, and then every time you get one of those same stupid replies, you just have a good meme to slap them in the face with. Like that's Twitter for you. But no, I really can't say thank you enough. Like I said, I can't wait to have you back on. If you could send me some books, I would love to review some and possibly have you on to review it. Or maybe if something big happens in the future, I see you go viral for something, maybe I'll bring you on so we can discuss why you're getting shared so much or something. But no, I really appreciate you so much. I will see you on Twitter though for sure. Chat, thank y'all all for coming tonight. Shout out to Hillary. She was really blowing up the damn chat tonight. Yeah, thank you, Hillary. The #1 ex-mom for all of us. But no, thank you, chat. Thank you to everybody that came that's from her spaces, anybody that watches Useless Eaters or watches her on Right Side of History. Thank y'all for coming in. Please go subscribe to her. Please like the video before y'all head out. And yeah, we'll see y'all later, guys. Peace the fuck
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.